And we should now be auditory. Okay, let me go ahead and make sure the recording is going here. All right. All right. We are good to go. Mark, how you doing? Can't remember. I don't know if I even hit up social media and let everyone know. And I actually did forget to put something at the top of the show last time, because last time we forgot to announce that we were doing Friday until the end of the show, and we didn't know how many people listened all the way to the end to know that we'd be here or not. And then it's been a week, such a busy week that I haven't had a chance to jump on the socials.
Yeah, I had to remind you Wednesday night.
Yeah. So we're here Friday. So far, it's discombobulated my whole weekend.
You're welcome.
Because, for me, I work 4/10, so I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. But yeah, we're so used to doing it on Saturday that
Yep.
Doing the last minute show prep this morning and then everything, I'm just like, it feels like Saturday. So that's actually going to help me though.
It's going to be nice.
Because once we're done, I'm going to be like, oh, it's Saturday night. Cool. Got another day and a quarter left of but it'll be, no, I have 2 more days. So
yeah,
it'll work out.
Same for me. I go back to work on Sunday. So it'll be nice to, instead of getting home and having, a couple hours and then going to bed because I work so super early, it's going to be nice to be like, oh, I can stay up tonight. I don't have to, because the whole reason why we're doing this early is because I got that family reunion tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that doesn't start until 2 or 3. So
yeah.
Hey.
So yeah, good to be here. Let's go ahead and hit the intro and just get going on the roundtable here, number 73. So let's go ahead and listen to what Mr. Muller has for us for the intro.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland, to the dark tower, came.
We are quartet, one from many. The palaver begins.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's Magnum Opus, The Dark Tower series. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter.
I swear you just look at me to try to get me to fumble that
I'm not
line.
doing anything. I'm just sitting here.
Yeah, you're giving me a look, though. You're giving me a look.
This is my normal face. you can't dispute that.
So we're here for Roundtable number 73. And as Chris informed us, this is actually this will be our 100th podcast for Dark Tower Palaver. Not counting a few of the small announcement things we have. If you're looking at your podcast feed, we definitely show a little bit higher than that. But in terms of actual podcasts, yeah, this is our 100th episode of Dark Tower Palaver.
All right,
dating back to what was it, October of, I forget what year now.
We've been doing it for 4 years this October.
Okay, so 2015.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it's, I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, we do bi-weekly instead of every week some, so we definitely hit 100 a little bit slower than some podcasts might. Yep. But no, it's been a lot of fun. Definitely made me think a little bit. I mean, the other thing is I mentioned before we started on the podcast on the live stream, I mentioned that it's just been busy and stuff. I wish I would have remembered this earlier so we could maybe plan something.
Yeah.
But no, what I figure though is that I think Roundtable 100 is going to have to be something fairly monumental.
Yeah.
So
all right, Ted, get on getting Stephen King on.
Yeah,
get on that.
Okay, I will mention. Did you? We talked about the fact that he was going to be on a podcast. That is it? I can't remember if it was Fangoria related. That's like their podcast associated with them, or not. But he did a podcast either way. Did you listen to it at all?
No, I forgot about it, honestly.
Okay, so and I don't know, we haven't started even the intro stuff yet, but one thing he mentioned in here kind of changed my entire view on a lot of things. And not that I was like necessarily hardcore the other direction, but kind of he was talking about adaptations, and multiple versions. Like Pet Sematary was brought up, for instance. The Stand, It, whatever. And I will say I've been pretty pro. In fact, I've been saying I want a new Shining adaptation. I think most people would probably poo-poo that, saying like Kubrick's movie.
Yeah,
right?
the reason why is because of Stephen King's feelings on the movie.
Yeah, well, not even just that, but just especially if you're gonna go into Dr. Sleep, like give me, because like what's in the book is so much different than what Kubrick did.
Yeah.
I want to see in today's standards of filmmaking and not like made for TV in the early 90s.
Yep.
I want to see Stephen King's version on screen. Plus, I think it would make it a lot less confusing for Dr. Sleep unless they just adapt it to like remove Dick Halloran and he's dead or whatever. I don't know what they're going to do. But either way, the one thing that Stephen King said in there that really struck with me is he said, like with a Shakespeare play, he's like, do they just do one performance of it and call it good?
No.
Or do they continually redo it, new actors, maybe even new takes on things? I mean, I think of like the DiCaprio Romeo and Juliet, right? Like that would modernized it and stuff. And I never really thought about it before, but I'm like, so you could do like, and I know your mass audiences are probably just gonna be like, oh, it's disrespect to Kubrick or whatever. But like, and I maybe would have said that about some remakes, maybe a little bit more outside of King. But thinking about that, I don't know, like that kind of blew my mind to the point where like I was a little bit like mad that like they're still trying to work on like a new Scarface remake and there's some other things they're doing. And I'm like, yeah, why? It doesn't really take anything from the original. It may suck versus the original, if depending on whatever remake it is. But I never thought about it that way, and especially when it comes to an adaptation, I think it's even more like on the nose. Is if you got a play that can be done by how many different places and have how many different takes over the years, like, but it's still the same play. Like nobody sits there and goes, well, this Shakespearean play was performed perfectly back in 16 whatever, so why do it again?
The 1894 production of Romeo and Juliet was by far the most superior one. This 1905 one is just not the same without Bob Sinclair playing Romeo.
Yeah.
No, stuff like that. No, but when you bring up a valid point, because you see movies get remade and it's always like, oh, another remake. But, you make a very good point because, I mean, like, I'm just looking at your shelf, looking at a couple here. King Kong.
Yeah, that one pretty much gets made once a generation.
Yeah, basically. And then I'm looking at...
like in the 30s, you got the 50s, the 70s, the 2000s. Did I say 70s? Yeah, there's been a number of them over the years. And there's like the Peter Jackson one. So
the Peter Jackson one in 2005. And then the Skull Island one that just happened.
Yeah, and then
couple years
he'll
ago.
be fighting Godzilla here in the next
supposedly,
couple years.
we got Godzilla versus King Kong soon.
So it's like one of those. Like I think that's a really good one because like that one legitimately has almost been made for every generation. Scarface, if they do a new one now, you will have three generations. Of, so it isn't as regular as like King Kong. But I find it really interesting, especially when we're talking about Stephen King stuff. Again, not that I was ever anti Stephen King stuff, but it's certainly from his perspective to bring up that analogy really kind of changed my thinking on just in general with remakes. It's just like
the thing that I always seem to like with remakes is like I'm looking at your shelf here again, and I'm looking at Halloween.
Yeah,
like the original Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween is a masterpiece. It's easily my favorite horror film of all time. I love the tension, I love the music, I love the performances. But it's set in the 70s. Like you can tell that it's a 70s movie, and everything like that. So instead of doing, like we just had a redoing of Halloween.
Yeah.
Not a redoing where they redid the original, but a sequel to the original.
Yeah.
And continued the story. But we also have remakes.
Yeah.
With Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
Directing. And, it's just interesting that you can, like what you're talking about, Romeo and Juliet versus Romeo and Juliet Part 2.
Yeah.
The Revenge of Juliet and the Poison. Whatever. It's interesting to see that there's different ways of doing different things. It's just funny that you and King make a very valid point. Is that
and I give all credit to him because that completely changed my thought process. Now I will say there may be things that like I think adaptations it fits the most because I do think there are certain things where it's like if something's such an achievement in film probably don't touch it.
Right.
Like, for instance, like Psycho was remade. And that one, they didn't even try to do anything. They just literally just did a shot-for-shot remake. Like, but even if you try to adapt it, do your own thing, there's part of me that's like, Psycho was such a touchstone of whatever. Plus, it's also Alfred Hitchcock, right? One of the greater filmmakers. Like I think there's gonna be certain things. Like, I never want to see Star Wars remade. I never want to see like Pulp Fiction remade. Like, there's gonna be certain ones that are like. But I think when it comes to adaptations, though, that almost changes everything, because it's like you're adapting a book. Like, you can adapt The Shining, once every 20 years and just have a different interpretation of it, because you're taking an existing thing, Shakespeare's play or Stephen King's book, and you're just taking a different swing at it, basically. And I don't know. It's not that I've ever been anti that I can remember. Maybe I have on some of the King stuff. But there's part of me that's just like, oh yeah, cool. I that's a really cool way to look at it,
No, it is. It definitely makes a lot of sense to look at it, especially with the, like what you brought up, the adaptation of, something, play, book, stuff like that, because there is different ways. I mean, look at the new Pet Sematary. Yeah, they changed it from the source material. They made some good changes. They made some bad changes. Some people didn't like it. Me and you both liked it. And everything. So it's a valid point. It really is.
Yeah, indeed. So just since you mentioned Stephen King on a podcast, that reminded me that I was actually going to put that in the notes. I thought about it earlier in the week.
Oh, I'm glad that I sparked your memory.
Then I forgot. So if you wouldn't have brought that up, I wouldn't have.
Go figure, folks. Tad forgot something.
Yeah, indeed. So we'll go ahead and hit the normal intro real quick. Just got an email recently from a newer listener, so I definitely don't want to forget intros, because you may have new listeners and they may not know things like, first of all, spoilers. If you haven't finished the 7 primary books, you don't probably want to listen to these episodes, the roundtable episodes. Stick to our book club episodes. With those, we stay where we're at in the book club or before. We never venture forward. Now, with roundtables, everything's a free-for-all. Ends to the book, the end of the book, the end of the series, the end of characters' storylines, big plot points, all that kind of stuff always tends to come up in roundtables, and they can come fairly randomly. So just because we're not like having an episode dedicated to the end of the series doesn't mean that the discussion on the end of the series won't come up, because we probably had we had one episode called The End, right? But we probably talked about the ending at least 5 episodes.
We did it last episode.
It comes up all the time. So don't listen if you haven't finished all this primary books of the Dark Tower series.
Unless you want to.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind being spoiled, then that's fine too. But don't come at us and say, "Hey, I listened to roundtable number 73 or whatever," and you ruined like the end of so and so or whatever. Like, don't come at me with that, because I just gave you a spoiler warning. Next up, if you want to find us, if you're listening on YouTube or wherever you might be finding us, if you want to subscribe to us, you can find us on iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can find us on any number of podcasting services. Pretty much, hopefully, everything out there. Also, if you can be so kind as to subscribe, rate, and review us on all those services, iTunes being the most prominent one, that definitely helps the show for exposure and that kind of stuff. Also, you can find the show notes at darkttowerpalaver.com. Everything that we're going to talk about in this episode, like, for instance, articles or pictures, what I'm showing Peter on the screen, you'll be able to find the show notes at darkttowerpalaver.com. If I reference an article, for instance, in this episode, I will give you a hint. There's like a list of some kind. I only grabbed the portion that applies to us. So if you wanted to read the rest of that list, go to the show notes, find the link for the article that I pulled from, and go read the whole thing. Last up, if you want to be part of the conversation, we definitely welcome that, and we want you to be part of it, because if you're new to the show, you may not know, but you are part of the extended quartet, and we want you to be part of the Palaver. So there's a number of ways to do that, and Peter can tell you how that is done.
Like Ted said earlier, the best way is email us, like the new listener did, darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. There's also a Facebook group. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. You can also follow us on the Twitter. It's @DarkTowerPod. That's @DarkTowerPod. And then also we stream our shows live. It's youtube.com/DarkTowerPalaver. You can check out past episodes of Roundtables. It doesn't go all the way back. We started a little bit after we started the podcast, but you can go there and follow along, see the visuals up on the screen like I see here in the office. And so that's youtube.com/DarkTowerPalaver. The book club's episodes do not stay up just because of copyright issues.
Yeah, indeed. And that reminded me, I just changed the slide over to show that we are on roundtable number 73. Also, I will say I'm a very light YouTube user. I use it a little bit, but definitely not as much as a lot of people do. In fact, I always make fun of my parents because they use YouTube way more. Like, I always make fun of my dad and say you're a little millennial kid because you're on YouTube more than anything else. That's not me, though. And I actually just watched a video last night where someone's all like, subscribe, but also click the bell because it'll notify you about like
notifications
for live or new videos or whatever. Honestly, I don't know that I've ever really known that up until that.
Oh, really?
So yeah, apparently our thing may have a bell as well.
Yep.
Click that because then it'll notify you when we go live. We're generally pretty regular with our schedule. Today obviously is one of the exceptions. But if there is a time that there's an exception, you'll get a notification. And like Jack or Mark in the chat, you can join us for the live show. If I forget to like put it on social media, you'll still be able to know by clicking the old bell thing there on the YouTubes.
Ted, forget?
Yeah, it's funny because I've been on the social media like engaging with conversations and stuff. So
yeah.
I actually paused my new cycle of the Dark Tower series to read a book on Chernobyl.
Of course you did.
And so I came back to it this week. Finished that book, so I'm back to book 4, and yeah, definitely got to a moment. And I have a little something here down in the Palaver section that I want to bring up that I brought up on social media. But let's get into the news first.
All right.
Also, just through the chat, thank you, Mark, said happy 100th episode. Also, he says I like remakes. It doesn't take anything away from the original. Yeah, and generally speaking, I think I've kind of the same way. I mean, I don't know. If you listen to like my own podcast, maybe I shit on them sometimes because again, there's times like what comes to my mind is things like the Psycho remake where you're just like, we're just going to take the exact same script, recast things and just like, well, then what's the purpose? Like, you're not giving me anything new. You're also not trampling on, because again, it doesn't take away from the original movie, but it's like you're stepping on the cape of Alfred Hitchcock, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. And I don't know. I guess I'm mixed on it. But readaptations, I guess. What do they call it? Remakes or readaptations. I guess now I'm all for. So yeah, definitely.
there's a big difference between the two there. Remake. Halloween was a remake.
Yeah,
that was taking a movie, remaking it. And the thing that I would say is that I can't think of another one aside from Halloween off the top of my head where you take it and make it modern.
Yeah,
is the big thing.
Yeah.
And that's where Stephen King's would be very interesting because there's aspects. I mean, we talked about it when the movie was coming out for Dark Tower. How is it going to change if we make Jake from the 80s and Eddie from 2007?
I was thinking about that recently, even in context of the show. And there's part of me that thinks that, like, you've got to get one of the 3 characters from our modern day just to make it more
relatable.
Because like Eddie was a contemporary character when the book was written,
right?
That was he was living in the world that the reader at the time would have been living in,
right?
So I think obviously Susanna's got to be where she's from, otherwise her story makes no sense. But I think
right.
Jake or Eddie, one of the two, could be moved easily to being modern day.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know, because I just feel like there's just so much of the world that's changed since 1987 that like. I can't see just going 77, 64, and
86.
86, 87. I can't see that.
Yeah.
That just, it feels like there would just be a disconnect. Like all 3 of the characters there wouldn't be anything for like someone coming in to like attach you. Not that you have to have that, but I feel like neither of the dudes that come from our world, neither of their like areas of a time. I think Jake's the most because I guess with Eddie, if you have him on the airplane, it's got to be pre 9/11.
Otherwise, it's going to be way too hard to try and.
Yeah, so I think keep him where he's at. So then Jake, like, is there anything that makes it that important for Jake to be from the 70s? I guess except for the whole crossing paths with Eddie. I'm not sure, but I don't even know how really important some of that stuff is if you really had to like lose a little bit of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I find it interesting because I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Now, here's a thought for you. Of the Stephen King ones, is there any that you feel still, even in spite of what Stephen King said and me saying I agree with him, of all the ones, what do you think would be the one that might be the most sacrilegious to remake or readapt?
Like
a lot of people would say The Shining, but outside of The Shining, like for instance Shawshank. I think that one,
Shawshank, you don't touch it.
just because it's like one of the greatest movies of all time. Like
it's perfection.
Like, yeah, like
what else?
I think that'd be
what else
really
could
hard.
you do? I mean, aside from a modern prison story, aside from that, there's not really much. And honestly, if you make it a modern prison story, you're not going to get an escape. It would be unrealistic for him to escape.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is like with like maybe the short stories, there's just so much less to the source material.
Yeah.
That like there's a little bit less, like maybe there's less wiggle room to like do new things. But yeah, I was thinking about that when we were just a few minutes ago when we were talking before we moved over into like the timelines for the Dark Tower characters. Is like, even in light of this like thought process of readaptations, is there any that you would find untouchable? And yeah, I would think that like maybe Shawshank would be one that's just
Green
like
Mile.
Just because like I don't know what else you could do with it. Whereas like The Shining, I feel like there's a glaring example of like why it would be cool to see, because like again, when I read The Shining, there's part of me it's like, fuck, I want to see this on screen.
And again, it's
not
so
good.
Yeah, and again, it's not anything saying like King said, it's not anything wrong with Kubrick's version. I mean, unless you're a purist like some people are, but for the most part, it's simply that what if there's another version out there, like you said. We use the Romeo and Juliet example. Yeah. There's the DiCaprio adaptation that made it modern. Yeah. And I loved it. Not that movie, but I love when they take things and they modernize it. Like, look at Godzilla, 30 years ago versus now. Yeah. The CG and everything like that looks fantastic. You got the new movie out now. I haven't had a chance to see it. You haven't seen it yet either.
I haven't.
But it looks beautiful. Yeah. And I love that they were able to, not have guys in suits jumping at each other and flapping their wings.
Although, did you see they made one like that recently over the last couple of years?
Did they?
Basically to appeal to the people that have grown up on them.
Oh,
they
really?
made one modern day that was just a guy in a rubber suit. And
really? Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to lie. That's awesome. But for me, it's just like, it's nice to see something like that retold. Yeah. Because it honestly, the question I have is, if you could pick, the Stephen King work that gets readapted most frequently, what would you pick?
I would probably go The Stand.
It's the easy answer.
Just because like I love those characters and how interesting it would be to see those characters taken at different times with different actors of different generations of actors, and see how they would, and also how the filmmakers, right? How would the filmmakers, like, because like we saw what they did in the early 90s, we saw what the filmmakers chose to do in the early 90s, but it's like, now we're going to get it in the almost the 2020 by the time we probably get it. And now you're in the streaming era. You're in the unrated era. It's going to be more violent. Mm-hmm. It's going to be more coarse. It's going to be more gory. You're going to have this whole new set of actors that like were, probably not around or known or maybe even adults when the last one was done. Like I just feel like that one, because like there's almost, especially looking at the first half of the book, there's some of that stuff is like almost timeless.
Sure.
Like government military cover-up stuff. Like,
no, and that
could be applied.
That's the thing that I was going to say, is that The Stand is the easy answer for that, because it makes it a very interesting dynamic, because what you said with Eddie and Jake with Dark Tower goes directly with The Stand. You go and watch The Stand, the 90s miniseries, my daughter, when she grows up, is not going to be affected by that. That's not how the world works for her. Yeah. But if you made a Stand in 2020... and she watches it, a couple years after that, when she gets a little bit older, all of a sudden she's going to be seeing things that, that's an iPhone. Yeah. That's a hybrid car. Yeah. Stuff like that. Remaking The Stand, the society changes from the 90s to 2019. Exactly. There's differences, vast differences.
Like also like that. Like I even think to myself, like if what they're doing now is like modern, what's social media going to do with the Captain Trips thing? Right.
No, exactly. You got Twitter, vloggers, you got YouTube streamers and stuff like that.
Yeah, like it'll be interesting. Like
it would be no, that's what I'm saying. I think The Stand set modern, remade every 20 or 30 years or so, kind of like Godzilla or King Kong, is being done. That's actually a really good story to tell every 20 or 30 years. Yeah, because it can kind of give a mirror to that time period, right? Sure. Like it could show you, like the book showed us what it was in the 70s and like the
you know, like just on the other side of Vietnam.
Yep.
And then you get into like, you know, the miniseries is a little bit more like early 90s, kind of the post Reagan era. It's like, and now move us into like the realm of like social media and like, you know, NSA, like if there's all kinds of crazy things they could do. But like, and I feel like that's one of those things that so it's like almost evergreen versus like something like, and I'm not saying I'm not excited because I really am excited for the Salem's Lot thing, but like whereas Salem's Lot being set in a small town, like almost feels more timeless. So like, I don't know that one would be as like, I don't know, as interesting, like on a constant basis. But I would say this, the Stand is one that would certainly come to mind as like, that'd be really interesting to see.
It would be a really interesting one to see. So we got a really good question here in the chat from Mark. Stand By Me is my all-time favorite. Would that hold up to these youngins? What do you think?
I mean, I think so. I
think Travis hits it on the head here.
I think that one's like one of those ones though. Like the movie to me is like, to me is such a classic. I'd find it hard to like see it readapted. Sure. But yeah, I don't know. Like, do you like? I guess is the question in the realm because like kids are like less. That's what
now. Travis said. Well, Travis says Stand By Me would totally hold up. Friendships and the pains of growing up Growing up and apart are universal.
Yeah.
Growing up and apart. Sorry, I put a comma in there when there shouldn't have been a comma. My bad, Travis. But the thing for me that when he says that, Travis says that, you know what pops into my head? Why was it so successful? It was a horror film, but it wasn't focused on horror.
Yeah.
What they really focused on was the kids.
Yeah.
The summer, the friendships, you know, the young love with Beverly and Ben and Bill and everything like that.
Because even that one shifted up, right? Because like,
sure did.
Let's just say in 2017, right, is when it came out.
Yeah.
You had these kids in the 50s.
Yeah.
Do you think that's as appealing to audiences today?
No, it was really interesting seeing like it wasn't my generation that grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
I was born in the 80s.
Yeah.
But I could see there's differences between the 80s and 90s, I will acknowledge that. But there's not differences between the 80s and 90s like there is between the 90s and 2019.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more between those two and 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
So for me, looking at it, Chapter 1, I saw a lot of what I grew up with.
Yeah.
Bikes.
Yeah.
Cowboys, Indians, exploring, bullies.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff like that. You know, that's stuff that I grew up with. You grew up with.
Yeah, indeed.
And so that's where I think they hit the they hit it by making it a little bit more modern.
Yeah.
And now we're going to get Chapter 2 that's
in modern,
set today.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of thing. So I think that Stand By Me would actually hold up. I see Travis's point going along the lines with it, Chapter 1, that it's just going to be a tale of 4 or 5 boys going to look at a dead body.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit further back, Ryan says, I do love that we get different time periods with each door, but I hear you. Yeah, and I would still want them to be different. Like, I want to see, I think Susanna has to be from the 60s, and I think Eddie has to be from before 9/11. I don't know when you'd have to put him in necessarily, but he has to be before 9/11, otherwise it makes no sense. But Jake, I think, is a little bit more and even Eddie, you could move him into the 90s if you wanted to. You can move it around a little bit. But yeah, I think Jake could be like whatever. But then, because you could still have a lot of the fun stuff. Like, one of my favorite things in the book is when they discuss our world from their different perspectives.
Sure.
Like Susanna not believing that Reagan was president.
The actor?
You know? But I did think about that recently, thinking about how, and maybe this is even where this original idea came from, because it was a few weeks ago or so, maybe even before I did the Chernobyl book. So maybe it was even something that sparked when they had that discussion. Maybe I passed one of those discussions.
Sure.
But how funny would it be? Susanna doesn't believe that Reagan is president, as Eddie's telling him, but then Eddie and Susanna neither believe that Trump is president, where Jake is from in the modern day.
Well, Susanna wouldn't even know who Trump is.
No, she wouldn't, but Eddie would. So you'd have like
Eddie would be like, Donald Trump, the real estate guy?
The real estate guy? Yeah. Like, it would just be like, you could have the same dichotomy. Like, because again, that's almost like the fish out of water things that we loved, even in the movie with like Roland. It's the same idea as like the time displacement thing. And like, so there's just part of me that's like, I don't know.
It's the reason why
when you want to have some of those light moments, like even just imagine like Jake trying to explain his cell phone to either of the two.
You know the reason why that works so well is because we're in on the joke.
Yeah,
Like we know that Eddie's right.
Yeah.
We know that Reagan was president.
Yeah.
Susanna's like, you're just pulling my leg. And it's like, no, he's really not. And you just kind of chuckle about it. The one that I think would be funny is if you went a different route instead of saying, oh, Trump is president. What I would say is that, Jake explaining 9/11 to Eddie.
Yeah.
What do you mean the Twin Towers is gone? What are you talking about?
Yeah, and Susanna would have no comprehension of that because they weren't built yet.
When did they get built?
70s.
In the 70s?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing is like, you take 70s Jake, he would be like, the towers that they were just building, they got knocked down? Oh, that's sad. But you take 80s or 90s Eddie, and you say, wait a minute, what happened?
That's like a staple of the skyline of New York, right?
That is the skyline in New York. I mean, you go back and look at even just TV shows.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, just like intros like Friends shows it, Sopranos show it.
Yeah.
What was it? Spider-Man 2 had a poster that they
Spider-Man
had.
1.
Was it 1 that they had to take down?
I think it was the teaser trailer of the first movie.
I thought it was the second
Had him
one.
catching criminals in a web between the two.
Between the two towers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like stuff like that. Like it was so iconic. And then to try and explain to 90s Eddie that, no, man, the Twin Towers
They're gone.
They're gone.
And if Eddie was coming from our time period, that would have happened either when he was really young or not born yet. Which is crazy to think about, right? Because what did we decide he was? I know they bring it up.
23.
Oh, or no, I'm talking Jake.
Oh, Jake, he's 12.
12. Like so,
11,
if he came from modern day, it would have been before he was born.
Yeah.
Like would he even have as much?
Well,
of a
I mean,
comprehension
that's if you have him come from 2019.
But
but there's the thought that you could have him come from, because see, that's where you could do the overlap. Is that if Jake comes from like 2007, 2008, but he was old enough to remember 9/11. He was born in the 90s. So what if he goes back to Eddie's old neighborhood and finds like, remembers what Eddie's remembering, and that's how he follows him. Something like that, like the ghost of Eddie or something like that. You could do something.
Now, here's one for you. What about telling Susanna about Barack Obama?
Good Lord. Oh, that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, that would...
She'd be like, there's no way there's a black president. She's like, not a chance.
Yeah, you know how unimaginable that would have been for
sure.
someone from that era?
From 64? Yeah, no way.
Yeah, like that would be...
They couldn't eat at the same counter as people,
Yeah.
They couldn't ride in the front of the bus, stuff like that.
Yeah.
To believe that they're the most powerful person in the planet?
Yeah, to be elected by the entire... Yeah, like there's just things like that make me think that like there'd be a lot of gold in my mind. Again,
sure.
And it could even just be... A lot of that would just be light moments. It wouldn't be like things that were like that detrimental to like the plot and stuff. But
sure.
I just couldn't imagine that wouldn't make it a little bit more approachable to maybe somebody coming from completely on the outside to the Dark Tower for the first time, is at least having one character that like comes from the same general area of time as that we're living in.
It'd be really funny if someone like Jake or Eddie, if you do there's an event that Susanna goes to for one of the race marches.
Yeah,
and they're like, and Jake's like, oh yeah, I watched a movie about that. And she's like, what? They made a movie about that?
Yeah.
That would be really funny if they did that, like.
Yeah. Yeah, or even just like the context of like, people get it in real life where it's like, in a number of years now, your daughter's going to be telling you how in the history book she read about 9/11,
Right.
Like something that happened when you were alive, but it's in a history book, right?
Yeah, something that happened when I was in high school, and I it's one of the, it's the moment for our generation. It's I remember where I was, I remembered what I was feeling, I remember what I was doing, and everything like that. The JFK assassination is obviously for the the generation before us and everything. It seems like there's always something like that,
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. So then Travis says, I grew up watching Godzilla and it has a huge influence on me. I just saw the new film and it was pretty good. It was quite a thrill. My favorite Godzilla film is the 2016 Shin Godzilla. I think that's the one I was referencing, the one that's like made to be like more old school.
Oh, okay.
In the film, Godzilla looked his most monstrous and twisted. I love it. So that's catching up on the chat. That's a little bit of a tangent to start off here. We
love tangents.
Yeah, no, but it is interesting. I did think about that a little bit when I think it may have come to like one of those lines about Reagan that made me think like, would you want to attach like season 2, 3, wherever we get into like Eddie and Susanna and Jake, like maybe that's even more seasons 3 or 4 or 5 before you get to them, or at least to the point where they would all be together talking in that way. Would you want to have somebody more modern? Okay, so now jumping into the news. The first article we got to cover here is titled "Ron Howard Admits Mistake in the Dark Tower Adaptation."
Mistakes plural.
Or mistakes, yeah. And this is by Dave Trumbore on May 30th. I almost said August. I don't know why. May 31st, 2019 on Collider. And this is actually kind of interesting. Like a lot of the headlines were basically synopsizing it as essentially saying that Ron Howard says that Dark Tower should have been a horror. And I was just like, before reading it at all, I was just like, no, that's not right at all. Like, Dark Tower is not horror, and like,
yeah, it has aspects of horror, but it's not a horror.
Yeah. But reading it, it gets a little bit better, a little bit more. Okay, I can see where Ron's coming from. Of course, this is just Monday morning quarterbacking. That's the other thing is like even just on social media and like different things, like seeing people like, there's part of me that thinks like, even if they had just gone direct lift from the book, like it still could have failed. Like just because we love it as a book doesn't mean it could be like a successful movie. I feel like some people make it out to be like, see, they failed because they changed things. It's like, well, if they didn't change things, what if they didn't change things and it still failed? Like then what would you be saying?
Yeah, because
like,
I mean, we talked about this when it was coming up to the adaptation. If they don't change things, they just do a straight adaptation. They do straight, shot for shot from the book and everything like that.
Yeah.
Are we just going to do Gunslinger? Are we going to do Drawing of the Three? What are we going to do? Looking at this was Gunslinger.
Yeah.
And so if we do straight shot for shot, honestly, the way the Gunslinger is, I mean, so many people have a hard time getting through that book that it makes me wonder if people would actually enjoy the film.
Yeah.
My wife liked the adaptation of Dark Tower. She's read half of Gunslinger and then stopped.
Yeah.
She couldn't get through it. So it makes me wonder if people like her, like if you get into it with those people and be like, hey, this is actually how, the movie should have been adapted. They would have been like, that's boring as fuck. I could see people saying that.
Yeah.
I really could. And that's where it's like, yeah, Monday morning quarterback, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
We will never know is the big question.
Yeah, exactly. Because ultimately this comes down to these people in general making millions of dollars, potentially tens of millions of dollars to make these decisions, and they still get it right or get it wrong a lot. Like this isn't a perfect science. There is no science. And I feel like sometimes people's fandom of the source material makes them think that like the source material taken straight across would be successful, and I just don't know. I think Dark Tower maybe keeping more in line, and we've talked about it at length since the movie came out. Maybe staying more true to certain things would have helped it stand out as being its own thing at least. Yeah. But there's a lot of things that are out there that are their own thing that still are unsuccessful. Like Alita, for instance. I love that movie. And that was a great, cool, I think it was based on some kind of a comic or something. But I loved the hell out of that. It was one of the most original sci-fi things I'd seen in a little bit. But that movie didn't really do great,
No,
like
it didn't.
If it wasn't for like international markets, I think it would have been considered a flop. So, it just because you have something that's like, I don't know. Yeah, you never know with Hollywood, I guess. So I just want to caveat that from the start because I feel like there's just some that people that like the Monday morning quarterbacking, there's just like, I don't know but I do want to see what Ron's thoughts are here because, I'm not discrediting his. I guess I discredit just some of the where it's like, man, if they would have just done this, it would have been successful. Well, it maybe would have been better. It would have been like a higher quality, but still doesn't mean it would be successful.
Yeah,
there's a lot of good quality stuff out there that doesn't get success.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and jump into it here. So this is again from Collider. During a guest appearance on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast for his new documentary, Pavarotti, Howard admitted that, the movie really should have leaned in the source materials, or the source story's horror content. He also learned a little too late that that a focus on the gunslinger himself instead of his kid sidekick counterpart would have been a better approach. And that's just kind of a synopsis of what is said, but then I'll get into the quote here. So the first quote from Ron Howard is, he says, quote, I think it should have been horror. I think that it landed in a place both in our minds and in the studios that it could be PG-13 and sort of a boy's adventure. I really think we made a mistake. I'm sure we could have made this movie, but I think that we could have made a darker, more hard-boiled look and make it the gunslinger's character study more than Jake. I think in retrospect that would have been more exciting. We've always felt that we were kind of holding back something, and I think at the end of the day, it was that. So that's the first quote that he has there. And like I said, like I don't like, especially the way that people are just saying like, because like I don't see Gunslinger as horror. Like no. I feel like saying like I feel like there's part of me that thinks that it's the same like the same reasons they changed it is kind of what may be making Ron think this. Is he just looking at all the successful box office things that are Stephen King horror stuff, or is he even just leaning on the whole pigeonholing of Stephen King as a horror author?
That's what I was going to say. That's literally what I was going to say, is that it really sounds like that they're just pigeonholing it into King as a horror author. That's all he writes. That's all he can do.
Yeah, because Dark Tower has horror elements, but Dark Tower is not a horror story. And if they would have made it a quote horror, now if I lean towards that one sentence where it makes it sound like, okay, we should have just been a little bit more darker, a little bit more hard boiled, and make it focus on the gunslinger more than Jake. Okay, if I just took that aspect, I can maybe get behind what he's saying. But like if the two things are both equal in his mind to where like that means that it then would have become a horror movie. No, like I don't know that you could scrape together an entire horror movie from the entire Dark Tower series, like, because there's horror elements throughout, but if you cobble them all together,
you get
maybe
hour and a half.
Maybe you'd have enough for a horror movie, maybe. But it's like there's so much more to the Dark Tower series.
Yeah, it would be so disjointed and unfocused that it would make a terrible movie. The horror aspects of Dark Tower, like you're saying, if we took it all and put it together, because like if you think just through book one. The only scene that comes to my mind that screams horror is the passage under the mountains with the slow mutants. That's terrifying. It's dark. You have something trying to get you.
Yeah, but Tull isn't.
Tull's a western. Tull's a gunfight. That's what that is.
Yeah,
and then like the adventure of the way station and the desert and the trip up the mountains and then the Golgotha.
Yeah,
none of that is horror.
Yeah,
none of it. And then all the flashbacks to Gilead. That's King Arthur stuff.
Yeah.
That's not horror.
Yeah. So like I guess like to me like if I want to lead on to just that sentence again, hard boiled, more like rough, darker, and focused on Roland. Okay, I can get behind that. But just if you're calling it horror, it makes me question like, where are you pulling that from, Ron? Like, do you understand this source material? Because saying that it should have been horror makes me think that there's a little bit of I don't know, like again, maybe it just turns into one of those things where it's like, well, look at all these lucrative, successful things that have been done with Stephen King, all these horror things. Well, that maybe we should have made Dark Tower horror. No, sorry, that's kind of a miss in my mind. There's more to this article, but let me jump over to the chat. Travis says, I saw this. He wishes it would have been horror. Didn't one of the producers of the new show say there will be horror in the Amazon series? And we'll definitely get to that in just a second. Jack says, let's see, would it help an adaptation using the method Marvel used? By that I mean taking aspects or characters or events from the source material, but not word for word. And right there is, to me, bingo.
That's how you adapt things.
Because ultimately, a book, they're two different art styles. A book looks internally. A movie looks externally.
Yep.
Like books, you're going to be in Roland's mind. How much of book one is inside of Roland's mind? Whether
90%?
Yeah, whether it's just like him remembering a flashback, or whether it's him considering like, is Brown here? Is this guy a fucking an illusion? Is he a trap by the like? So much of the book is spent in his mind.
Yeah.
You can't portray that on screen. Like you got to be external. So like I think that like what it comes down to, and that's what I was saying in the lead up to the movie is. You don't have to just give me like all the events of the first book in this movie, but I want to see true to the character. I want to see Roland that I recognize as Roland. I want to see Jake that I recognize as Jake. Like I want to see the Man in Black. Like those. Like and then take story elements. But there's going to have to always be adaptations because there's a different style of storytelling, even between comic books and movies, right? Like Infinity War in the books is way different than what we saw in the movies.
Yeah.
Across these last couple movies, like because I don't know what you do in a comic, it doesn't necessarily isn't gonna portray as well on a film. So I would agree with that.
Yeah,
Jack.
which was one of the biggest complaints about the adaptation of Dark Tower is that they changed Roland too much.
Yeah,
he has this drive for revenge for the man that killed his father. I mean, it's just a revenge story is what it is.
Yeah.
There is no quest for the Dark Tower. He doesn't give a shit about it.
Yeah.
And that's where, if you look at the 8 books, that's Roland's sole purpose.
Yeah.
Like, even with everything that goes on, even with everything,
yeah,
he always has that, yes, we must defend them from the wolves and get to the tower.
Yeah.
Yes, we must absolutely help the river crossing people and get to the tower.
The caveat I'll give, though, I did enjoy the fact that he wasn't fully tower just because the way I interpret the ending and this being a new cycle with him having the horn is that maybe because like he has more of his soul, that soul gets crushed under the weight of the fact that Roland's life is Roland's life, and that he has literally got to the point where he has forsaken the tower, and basically he just wants to close up this loop with fucking not loops, the wrong word, because that brings up all kinds of other things, but he wants to just close this one last string, kill the motherfucker, that has been part of all this, and then he doesn't fucking care at that point, because he's a broken person. And then what you would see then over the course of a couple movies is or even the course of this one movie, you see Jake kind of bring him back to to realize, because then you kind of have like a little bit of a tiny redemption to getting him back to the role, and that we know it. So, but a lot of that I was bringing to the movie didn't really portray to me. So I will fully admit that like a lot of that comes from my own baggage that I brought to the movie, and the movie didn't give that to me. So I can't give them full credit for that. It's just how I interpret it.
And that's just remembering, what people said after the movie came out, and in our show and the chats and emails and everything like that, was that when does Roland ever swear off the tower? When does he ever quit? That's the big thing, is like you go from Magus on the trip back with the grapefruit, and you see him get, okay, I got to go to the tower. Like, that's it. Yeah. His whole rest of his life. He may have other things, Jericho Hill and the Fall of Gilead, but it's all going to lead to him getting to the tower. And that's the thing, is that you take away something like that, and all of a sudden, what do you have? And that's where, like a lot of people had problems with the movie, is that. Yeah. Because you have,
and I could see where they're coming. I would even grant them fully. Yeah, all the stuff I brought to it to help me like enjoy the movie more. I would actually even throw all that out to say, if it would have just been a full on tower obsessed Roland, and even if we would have seen him kill or let Jake be killed, whatever that meant, great. I would have been all for that.
Because we heard rumors that the original ending
he shoots Jake.
He shoots Jake.
Yeah, and test audiences didn't like it. That I don't remember where we read that, but like that did come up at some point. We never really got more information about that, and we probably won't because of the way that everything went. But it's definitely, I don't know, it's something. Let's see. And then Travis says, I'm pretty sure that's what they might do with the series, an amalgamation of different elements from the story, which is what I'm thinking. And then Travis also says Game of Thrones did the same thing. And I think Game of Thrones is another one. Like, there's so much difference between what you could do in a book and what you could do in a movie or a TV series that you're always going to have some changes. So I just don't like when people get super dogmatic and like, hateful or spiteful because changes were made. If it's not like a foundational, fundamental shifting change, which to give credit, some people say that's what the movie did, and I'll grant them, I see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But if you have the key elements in place, like the MCU is the perfect example. All the key elements are there. Are certain story elements different? Did Civil War actually have to do with secret identities? No, it didn't. But at the root of it, did you have the Captain America and a Tony Stark and an Iron Man that I fucking know, that I've grown up with, seeing on the page? At the root of those characters is what I'm familiar with. Absolutely, I knew. And that's why those movies I enjoy so much, is because there may be changes to things. But at the root of it all the stuff that I know and love from my past was portrayed on screen. And that's all I could ask for. And that's what I want to see with this TV series, is I want to see, even if there's certain things changed, except for the Traveler's Rest. Can't change that.
See, that's where the problem lies, is that, you have the Traveler's Rest, and then I have Charcuterie, and someone else has Shimi, and that's where the problem lies. That you're never going to please everyone, and we understand that.
But I think Traveler's Rest and I feel Charcuterie, both those things are so, quote, cinematic. There's no reason to take those out.
No, there's not any reason to take that out, and that's the same reason as like a lot of people with like this adaptation and everything like that. Who brings it up in the chat here? Let me look back. It's Travis. He says, I would say Toll is horrific. That Yumi could be played in the same vein. Oh, that you could it could be played in the same vein as the Devil Rejects or Bonesaw Tomahawk.
Yeah,
which he's absolutely right. It absolutely could.
Horror in that way.
It could be played as just like horrific, because that's there is that gruesome horror that does exist and everything like that, and that's his version of Toll. For me, Toll isn't gruesome and horrific like that. For me, Toll is a man defending himself.
Yeah,
I picture something along the lines of like I'm trying to think of an example. Neo fighting Agent Smith in the second Matrix.
Yeah,
it's just him fighting for himself.
Yeah.
There's really not anything to gain. There's no girl. There's no loot. These people are trying to kill me. I got to defend myself. That's what it is to me, and that doesn't make it seem like it's, horrific. You look at the stuff in like Bonesaw Tomahawk, I don't know if anyone's ever seen that aside from Tad here. It's fucking cannibals.
Yeah.
They're killing to eat. You know, there's a purpose for what they're doing and everything.
There's some
like
pretty
that.
horrific shit in that movie.
There's fucking terrible, horrific shit in that movie.
I also got to bring up with Devil's Rejects there. Does that mean that Toll, we're going to get Freebird playing?
Oh, for the love of God.
That song is forever now in my mind connected to that whole thing in Devil's Rejects, dude. Like, that's all I ever think about when I hear that song now.
No, and that's just the point that I'm making is that, Travis sees it one way, I see it another way, and that's the problem with adaptations. You're always going to get that.
Yeah.
Someone's going to be left on the outside.
It's true, but I feel like because everyone has different favorites. But I feel like if at the core, like the story element, like the major story elements, like the Dark Tower itself, Roland's character, Eddie's character, like the character of all the content, all these characters, as long as those things are kind of true to what the book is, some of the story elements in my mind can change. Like, and not that they're changing is like a way to like, because it radically shifts everything, but like it's just a matter of like what's more pragmatic for a film or a TV series. You know, like I think Game of Thrones is a really good example. You know, there's a lot of stuff changed through there, including the removal of like huge characters and stuff. So
yeah, because there's characters that like they play pivotal roles that didn't even exist.
Yeah,
like they just
yeah. Like I heard at one point there's a whole other character that basically claims to be the son of the one Targaryen, like a bastard kid.
Oh,
and
really?
The whole book, like he's this big character that's claiming to also have a claim on the throne. And like that's nowhere even referenced in the show.
No, you get the brother and sister. That's it.
Even like the whole like there's not even like a passing like, you know, like yeah, we heard about this one fake like nothing. It's just completely exercised out of. Also, Travis says it's 100th episode. If so, happy 100th. Yep, it is. Thank you, Travis. I'm just kind of going through and making sure we hit all the stuff in the chat. Mark says he wants to see, or I want to see him blow Tull away, and I totally agree. I'd love to see it too.
Oh yeah. It's a great cinematic. Yeah, you could very easily make it a very dramatic, very action. You know, in all honesty,
I feel like John Wick-ish.
John Wick-ish, yeah. And in all honesty, Travis may be onto something that you make it a little bit more horrific so that it leaves an imprint on people.
Yeah.
You know, so that when you get down the road and someone crosses Roland or questions him in the collar or something like that, you're going to have Tull in the back of your mind of like, dude, don't fuck with him.
Yeah.
Dude, don't. Like, because I think about that sometimes when I'm reading book 5, when they have the first little camp out and there's that one arrogant prick, the rich farmer that's like, oh, gunslingers you claim to be, huh? And I'm just like, dude could shoot you. Like, he could shoot your teeth out of your head from sideways, you know, like don't
like the carnival game.
Yeah, no shit.
Clowns.
Yeah, dude, don't fuck with this man. And, and the other 3 are from New York. I mean, you don't want to mess with them either. So let's just not. And then like things like that, you absolutely could make it to where it's horrific. And honestly, I wouldn't be amiss if it went that way. It's just that, you know, that's not how I read it. That's not how I see it. So
yeah. And then Travis says, and I see your point, Peter, and I dig it. That's the same way, or that is the way it played out. Roland didn't want to kill everyone there. It's a gripping scene, man. Yeah, and yeah, I think that like, but I guess that's where I don't know. I guess
no, and that's the thing.
We're ultimately coming into like the whole conversation.
Well, no,
like,
but this is Travis and me here. This is the exact point that we're talking about with adaptations. What if we get a Dark Tower that does the spaghetti western? You see him shot and they fall over the barrel and they die, or you see the guy get shot and he falls back into the barbershop window. You know, you don't see the mass amounts of blood, but then you get the 20 years later, you get the remake of Dark Tower, and you get someone who does the edgier, more horrific, you know, it's dark, he's blowing kids away.
Yeah.
Version, and you actually see like
I think you got to have that in there, man.
You know?
If you're gonna do Tull, you got to show it all. Women, children, you got to show the whole thing.
So it's
maybe even go over the edge and have dogs there that are attacking him.
Oh, dude. You're already crossing the line with the kids and everything like that. Like, good God.
I mean, I don't know. Let's go on with the article here. This is going back to the writer of the article.
Oh, right.
Says, call me, because this is going to like bounce back and forth between the article person and quotes. Says, call me crazy, but in adapting King's horror-tinged Western series that centers on a lone gunslinger named Roland, one would expect the adaptation to be a horror-tinged Western centered on the lone gunslinger named Roland. That isn't rocket science, but it's a fine example of too much meddling to the point that the adaptation loses what was compelling about the original story in the first place. And I would say that, like, I still don't even think that, like, focusing a little bit more on Jake was even that big of a mistake. Like, because I feel like if you adapted if the movie had been a little bit more dark and gritty, like in the fact of like it is more Roland-ish, but you're seeing it still through the paradigm of Jake. You know, it's almost just making it darker, grittier, and more violent. But ultimately you're exposing a whole new group of people to this story. Like, and Jake, even in the first book, like we're experiencing Midworld for the first time through him. So I don't think that it's that big of a leap that like the movie was somewhat focused on Jake.
It's good storytelling to do that. You know, I brought this up before. It's one of the reasons why I like Harry Potter so much. Matrix is the same way. You get someone who's thrust into a world and that you learn with that character. Yeah. You learn with Neo.
That's classic storytelling.
You learn with Harry Potter. Take a classic. Take Back to the Future.
Yeah.
You take Marty and you thrust him into time travel. Hilarity ensues.
Yeah.
Ha, ha, ha. His mom's trying to make out with him. Stuff like that. But if you did that with the Dark Tower, absolutely it could work. Absolutely. And the thing is that I think that the big decision to go with Jake and what they're talking about here is that, it should have been centered on the cowboy. And I was like, but it was. Like, Jake was trying to get Roland back to saving the Dark Tower. Like,
yeah,
it's someone, it's help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're the guy. And you're the one.
He's also like kind of the strong silent type too, right?
Sure.
It's hard to focus on a character like that. For every Master Chief, you have a Cortana, or
Sergeant Johnson.
Yeah, like you got to have some of these people to play against these like
otherwise
stony
you get
exterior people.
Otherwise, you get 3 hours of Clint Eastwood staring into the camera with a stogie in his mouth.
Yeah, indeed. Then Travis says Roland goes Anakin on those kids, and then Jack says not just the men, but the women and the children too. And I know that's a reference to Star Wars, but there's still part of me that thinks prequel memes there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Just that makes me laugh. Then it goes on here. It says Howard admitted another error in planning, suggesting that the TV first approach would have been a better way to conjure the interest in the sprawling franchise from the general audience. And then here we go with the quote. The other thing might have been just a straight on tackle it as a television first. Disappointing because I poured a lot of myself into it, and sometimes this happens on these projects for everybody's best intentions. You're all pulling in a direction, and then you sort of say, was that the right direction? And I wouldn't say it was all compromise. I do think that it was just a sense of maybe too much listening to what you think the marketplace is calling for instead of the essence of what Stephen King was giving us. So that's the end of the quote there. So yeah, that's definitely a good thought too. And like ultimately, I think even all of us knew in a lot of the lead up to all this, we all knew that a series would have been a better choice than a movie.
Yeah.
Like I know for me, I was just like, I just want to see it on the big, see Roland on the big screen more so than like, I don't know, even if it was just a one-time thing and then move to the series after that. Like I just wanted to see that. But ultimately we knew that HBO or whatever would be a better route for this series.
And now we get Amazon.
Yeah, indeed.
Honestly, I think that it would have been better if we had done show first. I think I'm wholeheartedly on board with that.
Yeah.
Because I think that when you get something like there's shows that have done that. Firefly was one.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Firefly is is an anomaly where it was so popular when it got canceled, removed. I don't know what you want to call it with all the rumors and stories of how that went down with Joss Whedon. But there have been shows that have done it. X-Files had a movie.
Yeah, they had a couple movies after the show. Yeah, I think it could definitely happen. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I think, and whether you even go to movies,
there's an HBO show coming to a movie.
Yeah, Deadwood.
Yeah. So
but even like Game of Thrones, though, right? Like there was a lot of rumors that they would do some movie, like a movie, maybe to even end it all. Never ended up happening. But ultimately, it comes down to it. If the show is that good,
it would have pulled the box office.
It's doing so well as a show. Why not just let it go as a show? If ultimately if it comes down to start with the show, maybe with this, just start with the show and stay there. Just avoid movies altogether.
There's very successful shows that just go the length of the show, Game of Thrones, Sopranos,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Although now it's all turning on its head. Is like Breaking Bad's developing a movie, The Sopranos is developing a movie. Like it's now becoming kind of the cool thing to like make a movie a decade after your show ends.
Right.
But and then this finishes off here. Says it's a real shame that this that what seemed clear and obvious to millions of King fans around the world when it came to adapting The Dark Tower was so far from the minds of the movie's creative team until well after it was certified flop. Next up, the Dark Tower TV series set to arrive on Amazon next year and will act as a prequel to the movie itself. Second time's the charm. That's the
Wait, do we actually have official word that it's a prequel to the movie?
well, no, it's a prequel to it's book 4, I guess. Is
Yeah, I've never heard it associated with the movie before. I thought Amazon was trying to distance from it.
and they are. I think this is just the way that
Okay.
these people here at Collider.
I just wanted to make sure to put that out there because, like,
Yeah.
if it's supposed to be a prequel to Idris Elba, people are going to be a little bit confused when they see Sam.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And then we had, as Travis referenced earlier, then Glenn Mazzara tweeted. We'll get this up here, and he took an AV club because this went across everywhere. Like every freaking blog in the world covered this, and he retweeted an AV Club version of it. And his comment was, "Oh, I got your horror for you." And
well, Glenn worked on The Walking Dead, right?
yeah, and The Shield.
Yeah.
So, and then I actually on our account responded and said, "Charlie Tree."
Oh.
Am I wrong? Come on. It's one of the most
Hashtag Tad is terrible.
It's one of the most horrific things in the series.
Yeah, no kidding.
And he's got it. He's got horror for you.
Oh.
You got it coming, man. Gonna be seeing this sweet girl.
I'm gonna bawl like a little kid when that happens.
I'm getting there on the book, man. I'm getting close. Things are starting to come in motion. Poor Ermont was just destroyed.
Oh, my snake Ermont.
So it's all moving forward. I just hit that moment like yesterday driving home, and I was listening to it. And I just hit a spot where I just realized like maybe it was just after that, and I was just like, "This is it." Things are in motion now that cannot be undone.
We can't stop the boulder; it's rolling downhill.
Because so much of it is like there's intrigue and there's stuff going on, but like it's fairly light through a good chunk of the middle. But there comes a point there where it's like, Jonas is like talking about his plan about killing the mayor and killing the sheriff and like, framing the boys, and it's all the end, like it's to the moving into the end game now of the book, as it were.
You just like the end game is what it is.
But it's getting to that spot. All the pieces are about in place, and it's about to start to play, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna get ugly.
It's gonna get real ugly.
Yeah. Okay, so next up, we actually have a Croatian website called novelist.hr. They had a little article, but it didn't really cover anything that we haven't talked about. No new information, but they had some pictures. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. They're not the best like in terms of sharpness. I don't know if they're like cell phone pictures or whatever, but I've got some cowboys here. On some kind of staircase. I don't know what is going on there. And then we got some other gentleman here in costume.
Yeah.
And looks like they're in an opera house. I'm highly doubting that we'll actually see that in the show. And this last one, I don't think there's really anything. They put it on here, but I don't really see anything, so I don't know really what. It's probably just the surrounding area.
Yeah.
But then I had another one that was actually some random person on Twitter tweeted a picture, and this one's a little bit more interesting. Travelers on the sign there on the right. So
sorry, I was leaning in trying to look at that, and I was away from my mic. Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
So that is the Traveler's Rest.
It actually says rest underneath. Traveler's Rest.
Oh yeah. So
doesn't it?
Yeah. So that got me a little bit giddy because I don't know. It's a major set piece.
It's a huge set piece.
So
Traveler's Rest.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in that throughout the entire book. Really, I mean, you don't just have the showdown. You've got a number of different things that play out.
It's basically Jonas's base of operations.
Yeah, and not just him, but all of he and all of his cronies there.
Yeah.
So that's really cool to see. What do you think of the look of it?
It looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah, it's I mean,
A rundown piece of shit.
yeah, yeah, indeed. So yeah, that's a lot of fun to see. So let's go ahead and move over to the next article here. This one is the list that I referenced earlier: 10 book series that would make a better game than The Witcher 3, by Anthony Avina on June 1st, 2019, on The Gamer. Now I don't know. I used to be way more into games than I am anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if The Witcher 3 is like bad or if it's good.
No, it's a good game.
Okay.
Really good game.
Okay. So, because the way this article is reading, it's
Sure.
like, could be better than that. That means that either that was a huge flop and everyone hates it. It's like, God, all these could have been better than this. Or it's something that's really fucking good and they're trying to hype
As
up.
far
and
as
say,
I understand it, I haven't played it, but as far as I understand it, Witcher 3 is a phenomenal game.
Okay. All right.
I mean, should I just look up what it gets? Like,
like it's
score?
it's a Metacritic thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this just the intro to this is, while there have been numerous video games that have succeeded due to the original storytelling, some of today's more popular games have been adapted from novels or comic books. One of the best video game series with a massive best video game series with a massive book following, as well as no doubt Metro 2033, as well as the ever popular fantasy series The Witcher.
By the way, Metascore 9.4 out of 10.
Okay.
That's a user score. That's ranking it from people who have played it. That's pretty fucking high for a video game. That's really damn high.
Yeah. So so he's basically saying that better than a really good game. That's good to know.
Really good.
These two franchises prove that the world of video games is ready to tackle the rich tapestry of creative worlds in books and bring them to life. Here are 10 fantasy books that will make a better game than even The Witcher 3. So yeah, you got that. Got a whole list there. If you go to the darktowerpalaver.com if you want to read the whole list. But of course, there's a reason we're talking about this.
Because Dark Tower's on the list.
Dark Tower's on the list. Not only on the list, it is number 1 on the list.
No shit.
Yes, indeed.
Damn.
And his comment on it says, one series that has been ready and perfect for video game setting for years has to be none other than Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. Series that spans not only 8 books in the series, but ties into stories of several other books he's written over the years. The story of the last gunslinger, Roland Deschain, in the land known as Midworld, in his quest to protect the nexus of all reality, the Dark Tower, from the Man in Black and his master, the Crimson King, is a wonderful mix of fantasy, horror, and action.
Fuck
Now, what do you think, though, overall? Like, what promise would Dark Tower have as a video game? And not just as Dark Tower fans, but, like, overall, like how...
With video games the way they are now, with the direction that you can do and the customization and everything like that, I could definitely see it being a success. Looking at
even with the stretches between a lot of action.
Well,
that's
the thing is, I think that if you set it where I'm thinking, Fall of Gilead, there's going to be nothing but action.
Yeah.
Roland has the Battle of Jericho Hill. That's where you start the game. You start with the Battle of Jericho Hill. You lose your best friend, your 3 best friends. Your parents are dead. Your love of your life is dead. And now you have to strike out into the world and figure out what the fuck you're going to do to get to the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
And, maybe the whole game, imagine if the game wraps up with you finding the trail of the Men in Black. And right as the game closes, you get right before the end credits, the Men in Black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. That would be a fucking epic game. You make it to where you can customize Roland's look, have a Idris Elba downloadable skin, of course. You could have the horn, not the horn. Make it customizable to where.
No, dude. What if you did it?
This is a really good idea.
What if you did it without the horn?
Yeah.
And the game literally ends.
New Game Plus,
where it just brings you back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you could play through it and potentially get a different ending.
That's the thing is, like, I wonder if you would do that.
And what if you did it, like, choices actually decided?
Well, the thing is like, what they're saying here, and this is something that this is the what you're talking about with like Witcher 3. It's action, but there's a lot more story in games nowadays, especially some of these single player games like this. My wife got into a guy streaming on Twitch, not YouTube, and he played Skyrim like 4 straight streams, and I caught part of it when she was watching it. And seriously, I've never played Skyrim. I've never picked up Skyrim. And I'm like, oh, there's a lot of like dialogue here with like, I mean, he skipped through it really fast because he's streaming and wants to get to the action and everything like that. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then I started thinking back to games that I've played. I think back to games like Red Dead Redemption. I think back to games like Ghost Recon, Wildlands that you got me into.
Yeah.
And I think back to those ones, and I'm like, okay, I could see where those ones are like action with story sprinkled on top.
Yeah.
But then I started looking at, you say Witcher, and the little bit that I know about Witcher is that there is actually a story. And a deep story, which is why it's I can't remember, and I think the article went over it. Did it spawn books or did it come from books?
It came from. It sounds like it came from books.
It came from books.
The way
think,
it sounds,
right?
Yeah.
So for me, it makes me wonder if the Dark Tower. I think the Dark Tower could do it.
Now here's the question:
Yeah,
do you start that late, or do you start the game earlier, and that you're just a random gunslinger in the waning years of Gilead, and then maybe you kind of do a like Red Dead Redemption. Like at a certain point of the game, in the first game, like you change characters.
Yeah.
What if you change characters to Roland, and what if you even went through and did all the mages stuff? Like
damn,
you'd have to abridge some of it, I'm sure. But like, can you imagine having like that showdown at the
Traveler's
Rest, or like I don't know. And then like, there's part of me even thinks that fast forward whether it was all one game or whether you had multiple games, but whenever you got to Blaine, dude. I think that like what they would have to do is just fucking program like the hardest riddles, and like I don't even know how you do it, but like I would make that like fucking hard, like furiously hard, like
the Lion King level 3, the freaking wildebeest challenge.
like just
like, you've heard about that, right?
I mean, yeah, I would want it to be. I wouldn't want it to be somewhere you're just like, oh yeah, whatever, blah blah blah, and like get through it. Really, like I would want it to be something like people are like having to try multiple times to get through this because.
Yeah.
It's Blaine, for God's sake. Like, it should be difficult, right?
Travis says, Bethesda and Rockstar need a tag team a Dark Tower game. If you play any of the Red Dead games, it blends story and action extremely well, as does the Elder Scrolls series. Travis, correct me if I'm wrong. I've never played it. Skyrim is one of the Elder Scrolls series, correct? Let me know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that it is.
All I know is I just hear the names like that, and I'm like, I don't have time for things.
No, exactly, and that's the thing. It's like for a game like if you want to do something as deep and as rich as Dark Tower, yeah, absolutely. There's games out there like that now. There's a big calling for games like that, which is where the big
yeah. He said yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Travis. I thought
he said
so.
yes, sir. Actually,
yes, sir. Thank you. I'm pretty sure that's where a lot of people are calling for single player games.
Yeah,
is they want those story driven. They want the action, but they also want a story behind it. They don't want. Do you remember on the PlayStation or the early Xbox the Lord of the Rings games for the movies?
Yeah, just hack and slash.
Hack and slash. No story really whatsoever. Nothing different. They didn't want to give you anything because it came out a month before the movie came out.
Yeah,
they didn't want to give you away the ending of the movie or the final battle even. Like Helm's Deep was way different in the Two Towers game than it was in the movie. But for these ones, since they're just telling their own story, I mean, just go look at Red Dead. For you playing Red Dead, was it too slow?
No. Like, some people, like I know my brother that's ADHD, whatever you call it, he has a hard time with games that get too much into story just because he's just like, doesn't have the attention span to like, and he'll tell you that. He's like, I'm not playing a game to like go and watch 20 minutes of fucking, cut scenes. Like, whereas I love that shit.
Absolutely.
Now, don't put a cutscene to where if I die fighting the boss, I have to watch the whole fucking cutscene again, or I will like, I don't know what, but some horrible things will happen.
Yeah, because like for me, I started realizing very early on, not very early on, but almost a decade or so ago, when I played Call of Duty, the Modern Warfare. Dude, I want the cinematic experience. That's what I crave now, which is why I'm drawn to like look at some of the games that I really, really love right now. Dude, I'm drawn to like the Spider-Man game on the PlayStation 4. I'm drawn to the 3 Arkham games for Batman. They're very cinematic, but they give me the control to be
Marvel's about to announce a game here.
Dude, I am so fucking stoked about it. You have no idea.
But I think that I was not totally sold that Dark Tower could be a game necessarily. But the more I think about it, especially expanding it out, I was thinking mostly just the 7 primary books and not even counting the book 4 stuff. And it just felt like, man, there's so much that's not action that like would people. But yeah, if you expanded it out and you saw a lot more and did a lot more and maybe even added some side stuff, like maybe you have more side quests when you have your quartet.
Sure. It's the thing that it would be is what I would equate to you for what you know with video games. Think of it with like Star Wars. Like, yeah, there's going to be action-packed games like Battlefront where all it focuses on is battles.
Yeah.
But then you could get something like Knights of the Old Republic, which is only story-based.
Yeah.
Like, the action in that is press a button, press a button, press a button.
I think Dark Tower would have to be like a sandbox game, too.
Oh, it absolutely
like,
would.
Yeah. Like
Wildlands, Ghost Recon Wildlands is exactly how I would think it. And I actually just had a thought that would really tease you. Wildlands, the reason why me and you loved it so much, for those of you who haven't played it, is you're a special agent ghost, right? Is what you're called. Going down into Bolivia.
Yeah.
To just fuck up a Mexican cartel that's taken over the country. You can go wherever you want. You can go in any order. You can do. There's 4 main branches of the cartel's buildup. Imagine if you're doing that right before Roland heads off to Magus. So you have Farson's men causing troubles in all the different districts of around Gilead.
Yeah. Where
you're just a gunslinger. You make your character, you name him and everything like that, and then you're sent out on missions to go stop a rebellion in Las Vegas. Come up with a different name, obviously.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything Gilead related. You know, South Gilead, go stop a rebellion there. North Gilead's now in rebellion. Go there.
Yeah.
Everyone in East Gilead disappeared. Go investigate. You know, you could do different types of missions for different ones. Yes, this one is going to be entirely run and gun. You have to lead a charge with a couple other gunslingers and the militia versus the rebels.
Yeah.
Oh, this one, everyone's disappeared. Go investigate the skinwalker or whatever they're called for went through the keyhole kind of thing. You know, stuff like that. Hell yeah, dude. I'm mad now that this isn't announced.
Indeed. All right, so let's jump on over to, and this is actually kind of apropos that this article was in the old hopper here, because it's kind of a little bit what we've been talking about this episode. The biggest challenge in adapting Stephen King books, according to It and Salem's Lot writer. This is from Gina Carbone from Cinema Blend on June 2nd, 2019.
Fuck, I do not like the...
So my buddy, we watched that teaser, or he watched the trailer for It, and when he's like, "Hello," like my buddy's like, he sounded like Winnie the Pooh. He's like, "It's ruined Winnie the Pooh for me." Like, I started looking at like the comments on YouTube and stuff, and there's a bunch of people that said Winnie the Pooh. Like when he says hello to her is just it's whether it's to her or not, who knows? But it's I can't wait for the movie. This is actually the picture on the article, so I didn't pick this just to torment you.
Sure.
Okay, so starting off here, it says Stephen King is the king of horror on the page, but Gary Dauberman, I think is how you say it, is ruling the horror world on screen. He's a longtime writer for the Conjuring universe. He's making his directorial debut with Annabelle Comes Home, which he also wrote. Dauberman was one of the writers adapting Uncle Stevie's novel It for the big screen in 2017. The film that was a massive hit. He's back in the lone credited screenwriter for It Chapter 2, which comes out this September. Dauberman was also recently announced to be writing the script for the new screen adaptation of King's book Salem's Lot. Cinema Blend Cinema Blend's own Nick Venable talked to Gary Dauberman about his many projects, including the new Swamp Thing TV series, which got canceled after one episode, and of course about.
Are you serious?
I mean, I think they're going to let play out what they got filmed for season 1, but there was like all kinds of there's a snafu involved there, but that's. Who knows? And it says, of course, asked him about adapting Stephen King books, which are the biggest challenges, or what's the biggest challenge in that daunting process. And here's Dauberman's response. A quote, there's a lot of challenging things, but really it's an editing process of like, you're not going to get all the fucking great scenes in there, but they always say you have to kill your darlings, but it's like, they're not. They're my darlings, but I'm such a fan of the books and the scenes. And so it's challenging to sort of decide, okay, well, I really like this, but I love that. Is there any way to get the two ideas in there and maybe put it somewhere else? It's one of those things where I tried to preserve as much as I can of the book in the spirit of the book and why it works.
See, that right there. Listen to that and then go listen to Ron Howard, how he talked. That makes me wonder, like, how much of a fan Ron Howard really was of Dark Tower. Because, like, him saying that, I should have definitely made it more horror. I think you said it earlier. How much of the source material did you actually know?
Yeah, like, are you a huge fan? Because, like, I can't even. I even am apprehensive at times when I'm describing it to people that don't know anything about it to even say horror when it comes to Dark Tower.
Usually, here's how the conversation go. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Dark Tower. I even do a podcast on it. Dark Tower, is that by? I'm like, yeah, it's by Stephen King. They're like, oh, okay. So it's horror based because that's what Stephen King writes. It's got a little bit of horror and it was mostly a Western fantasy. What? I thought King only did horror.
Yeah.
And that's where the conversations usually
go.
Like
me, if I was going to describe it, horror is one of those ones. I don't know that it really comes up in my vocabulary a lot when it comes to Dark Tower.
Right.
Then it goes on here. This is actually back to the article writer. It says Stephen King's It is quite a tome, but it's one book. Gary Dauberman, director Andy Muschietti and company decided to split it into 2 films for the respective youth and adult timelines. That might have been a relatively easy decision, but there were harder editing calls to make. The first film took out one of Uncle Stevie's most controversial scenes from his book. We all know
we
that.
all know what that is.
However, the second film is including a different controversial scene that was cut from the previous TV miniseries, and that's
we talked about this the other day, didn't we?
Yeah, and I think we talked about it on the episode too because it was in the trailer, right?
Did we?
I thought we talked about one of the. Just because the balloons in the bridge, I thought we brought that up on the episode.
No, I think we talked about it afterwards downstairs when I was leaving. I don't think we brought it up on the episode, but bring it. Just clarify real fast, just to make sure.
Adrian Mellon is pretty much confirmed, not only just the trailer, but actually in another interview, Gary Dauberman actually completely confirmed that Adrian Mellon is happening in the movie, and not only that, it is going to be the catalyst for the new timeline, or of it's going to be the
kickoff,
the kickoff for the new cycle of
for the
Pennywise.
The cycle for when they're adults.
Yes, it's going to start. That is going to be that. So that's a fairly memorable and horrifying scene in the book, and it was definitely not touched at all in the miniseries. So that was brought up there, and then.
Yeah, I just turned around I just looked at the screen again. Yeah,
and then the article. It's funny because his dad.
Okay, you're not gonna say it. I know you're not gonna say it.
What?
His dad is Eric Selvig.
And he's in Chernobyl as well. The actor.
He's in Chernobyl.
Yeah,
I literally watched Thor: The Dark World last night.
Oh, but it's Selvig too.
Yeah,
it's the same.
No, it's just funny that you brought up his dad because like the credits are rolling and I'm like, I know that name. Natalie Portman, of course I know that name. Chris Hemsworth, of course I know that one. Skarsgård, I forgot that he's related to Pennywise. That's his dad. Yeah, that's right.
Indeed.
And then you bring it up today. I watched that last night.
Yeah, indeed. So then it goes on here with the article. Again, not a quote, but the article says, when it comes to Salem's Lot, that's a book that King previously called one of his favorites, but just because King did something this way doesn't mean that it translates well to the screen for viewers. Plus, the guy is notoriously iffy on book endings, and that can make a screenwriter's job interesting. Gary Dauberman continued on the challenge of adapting King's tomes, and then this is a quote directly. He says, quote, I mean, there's books out there that have great concepts, but they're not executed well. So you're like, well, I like the concept, but it's kind of just, kind of just run with it, or it's got a good first half, but the second half is not great. So you can depart from it. But these are not those, right? They work so well. There's a reason that they've been around as long as they have been. So you're just working really hard to preserve as much as you can of it and give it the respect that it deserves. So I will say that I don't know if the article person was trying to imply that like Gary's quote in some way applies to King and King's maybe his endings being less good or whatever. I don't think that Gary's actually saying that at all. But he's saying that at times with other books, there are certainly times that you maybe like the concept and not the whole thing, or you don't like the ending or whatever. Yeah. And then this goes back to the article. It says there's a lot of pressure on Gary to do justice to Stephen King's novels, and that seems to be his first priority. He's a fan of himself. King is usually pretty candid about what he likes when he likes an adaptation, Pet Sematary, and when he doesn't, The Shining. So he may just go ahead and mention if he's unhappy with what Dauberman does with his next work. Being able to be, and this is the last bit of it here is a quote from Gary as well. It says, being able to be a part of the team that brings these things to the big screen has been a remarkable experience and a whole hell of a lot of fun. So at the end of the day, man, we're working on it or Salem's Lot. I just don't want to pause. I just hope that Stephen King likes it and laughs. At the end of the day, if he's okay with it, then I'm okay with it. That's kind of what I'm working towards. I've been talking about keeping my head down and doing the work and not trying to think about the pressures of when I read this for the first time or all the fans and all that stuff. You just try to go, okay, this is a fucking great book. How can I make this a great movie? So, That's I found it interesting, and I didn't really realize that we'd get that deep into like the conversation with Ron Howard. But it is interesting that all comes together
for sure
with that.
No, it is very interesting. God damn it! I can see the fucking reflection of Pennywise in your window over there. Fucking hell!
You can't escape him.
God, can you go to the next slide? Fucking hell!
Oh, hey, he's a friendly fella there.
Yeah, so friendly he likes to bite.
But yeah, no. So that was a cool little article there, and that's actually the last of our articles. So that would move us over to Palaver section, which we haven't had in the last. We didn't have in the last episode, but a few things here in this section. First one, Rhea winning our poll, where we did our most hated characters poll. A thought entered my mind recently. Do you think that the lack of closure that we as an audience get to Rhea adds any bit to her being hated?
Sure.
Because like there's an implication.
Mordred's done. Crimson King's done. We know what happens to Cordelia. We know what happens to Gasher, TikTok Man. Look at majority of the people on this list. We know what happens to them.
Yeah.
Benny Slightman, the Elder, we kind of get an idea that, he takes his glasses off, smashes them, and I'm never going to see again. You can kind of tell that he's just going to have a miserable existence. Good. He suffers. Good for him. Fucking traitor.
Could you get an implication that Roland kills her? Because he mentions that he ran into her again, but that's all we get is that line.
That's it.
And, the implication is probably he wouldn't let her live if he saw her again.
Well, he would try to kill her, but how do we know that she doesn't escape again? That's where my mind went.
But it certainly is something that we as an audience don't get that pleasure of seeing her killed. Whereas Cordelia dies, like, she strokes out or whatever. Yeah. But I just thought about that. I just wondered if if her not getting her just desserts would actually like make her more hated. Like your favorite character from The Mist, for instance. She obviously gets her comeuppance. Like there's an aspect of like that is going to happen. Whereas Rhea doesn't, and I just wonder, like, does that add to people's hatred of her?
It's always worse when the bad guy gets away.
Yeah, especially one as horrible as she is. Yeah. She's a pretty terrible person. Travis says my stepson asked me if I could take him to see It Chapter 2 in theaters. My reply was a swift, "Oh yes, I can." That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. No child should be deprived of seeing Pennywise.
No, the question is, Travis, because this is the age-old question between me and Tad. How old is the stepson? Because according to Tad, at 5, they should be watching Chucky.
I did.
Speaking of which, by the way, fucking Mark Hamill voicing Chucky. Jesus Christ, he's creepy.
Dude, I talked to so many people that were like shocked that he wasn't just doing Joker voice. I'm like, are you guys that dense to think that fucking Mark Hamill's just gonna he's a one-trick pony? Like, he's a talented voice actor.
He's such a good voice actor.
He's gonna do something different. He's not just gonna do Joker from the animated series. Because I talked to like 3 different people that were like, I'm shocked. I thought it was just gonna be like Joker from Batman for the voice of Chucky. I'm like, guys, no, Mark is way more talented than that.
He's so good.
Travis got your answer there, 9.
Oh, good God, Travis!
Awesome. My childhood is defined by the fact that I watch horror movies my whole time. So there's this part of me that's like, in fact, I've even thought there might be part of me that's like, I don't know, like if I was like at a theater and I saw like kids being turned away from It Chapter 2, I will do everything I can to make sure those kids get into that theater.
You're like, hey, I'll open the back door. Come around back.
Yeah, it's just dude, how many of us, our childhood was like defined by that Tim Curry miniseries, right?
I just had an image of you with a big fucking trench coat sneaking kids in under it. like, come on, kids, let's go see the scary clown.
All kids should be able to see it, man. Let's I mean, like with the original being on TV, I don't think there was as much of like a stopgap to stop kids from watching it. They just had to turn on their television, or like more urgent, like or a little bit later, like more closer to like me being like 10 to 12, like it was on VHS. You just pull a fucking tape out and throw it in and watch it, or rent it at Blockbuster. Whereas the movie theater, it's like, man, every kid should be able to get into that movie theater and watch that fucking Chapter 2.
Travis says, I don't think 5 is a good age for most kids, but I introduced my stepson to the original It TV series at age 7.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a little bit later than you, freak.
Dude,
God,
it's wonderful, man.
My daughter's 6, and I think about showing her some of the things that he said that he watched at that age. And I just shudder to think about the nightmares, the blood-curdling screams that she would have.
Oh, I mean...
She gets freaked out over freaking Minecraft, for God's sakes.
I don't know what Minecraft is,
Like,
but...
God.
I will...
They just have, like you Minecraft blocks, right? Like, they're blocky. They literally just have, like, zombies in it. Like just zombies. Very simple, very easy to, like, dispatch in the story and everything like that.
Would you let your daughter watch Neverending Story? Because that's the one.
No.
That's the one that fucked me up as a kid. Is that wolf?
The wolf in that. But no. More importantly, her favorite animal is a horse. So fuck no. Would I have her watch Neverending Story right now?
Oh.
Maybe in a few years. But at 6,
dude, that
would fucking traumatize.
Dude, I
her.
used to have that time because I loved watching the movie. I just hated the wolf. I used to have a time where I could like walk upstairs to like get a snack, and I would know exactly how long to take to get back, and the wolf was dead. Because like dude, that thing freaked me out more than almost every horror movie I saw, dude. That thing.
It's so funny how we as kids latch onto one thing. For me, it was fucking Tremors.
Yeah,
dude. Fuck you if you're going to take me out in the desert and I'm not going to be watching for fucking poofs of smoke coming towards me. I would go camping here in like the Utah desert over here and everything, and I would seriously be like, okay, there's a boulder. There's a boulder. There's a boulder. If I see a fucking tremor coming, I'm going for that boulder first.
Dude, Psychic here. Travis also mentions Neverending Story. My daughter's 2 going on 3, so films like Labyrinth, Neverending Story, and Dark Crystal are first up. By the way, I can't wait for the Netflix Dark Crystal series. It looks incredible. Yeah, indeed it does. But it's just funny because I did not see that, and I mentioned Neverending Story almost the same time as he
so
put that in there. But no, that one's just one that like freaked me out.
Oh, yeah.
And I will also give you credit for is that when I started watching it at 5, I wasn't as like cold and affected by horror then
as you are now.
I mean, from probably ages 5 till probably about 13 or 14. Yeah, like they freaked me out. Like me and my cousin, growing up, me and my brother, my cousin would have sleepovers. We'd go to Hollywood Video and we just went A to Z through the horror section. Got everything. We watched everything we could. And we would always rent comedy, or we'd own something like Liar Liar, Dumb and Dumber, like usually Jim Carrey. And we would always watch those after the horror movie before bed. So like up until like, probably about 13, 14 is about the age when it started to get to the point where it's like, okay, like this isn't like, it doesn't scare me anymore. So I'm not saying that it's
just funny that you say that. One of my friends from junior high posted on Facebook the other day that her 9-year-old son watched a horror film, and he's having trouble going to sleep. He's having trouble with nightmares. She's like, so what should I do? And someone was like, Disney movies. You watch a Disney movie after every horror movie, and the kid remembers the Disney movie and not the horror movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, I completely forgot about that because you've told me that before about Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
You use Jim Carrey. That's one of the reasons why Liar Liar is so prominent for you.
And Ace Ventura was the
Ace
biggest
Ventura, yeah.
Because I think it was around 12 when Liar Liar came out. So Ace Ventura more, because that would have been like on video and stuff. Through a lot of our sleepovers back in the day.
So like, it's just so funny the correlation between that with people is like some people use Disney films, other people do that. For me with horror films, it's not so much that I have to watch something else. For me, it's I just avoid horror subreddits and stuff like that, because Reddit's where I go to unwind at the end of the night.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at like the subreddit for Aw, and see like the puppies and the kittens and stuff like that. There's a new subreddit that I found. Well, not new subreddit to me. That's called Humans Being Bros, where it's just people doing random acts of kindness.
Oh.
So stuff like that you absolutely despise.
Yeah, as I say, me, I'm just like watching live leaks, watching the most horrific shit I can find.
What was the one called that they kicked it off a year ago? Watch people dying or something like that.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I think I watched one GIF on that, and I went, nope, I'm out. That's too much for me.
Yeah, Travis mentions Gmork, name of the wolf from the Neverending Story. He serves the nothing. Yeah, and then Jack says, I remember going downstairs and watching Event Horizon at a very young age. Fun times. It's I don't know. That's my childhood, man. And and I just feel like Pennywise should belong to the children. Like that should be like every generation should be able to just like watch and be terrified. And
it would be a good one. We didn't mention it earlier with The Stand and what was the other one that we said?
To be readapted.
Every
27 years.
Seriously, yeah, every 27 years. Realistically, it could. Every 27 years, you bring it back. It's the cycle. I mean, it would be really interesting.
It would be like, because every child's going to have a different experience, different childhoods, right? Different generations, different actors. It would, yeah. I think that's another one. Yeah, I'm with you with that. And in fact, I was going to bring that up, but we got so helter skelter with our conversation that I kind of lost it in my mind. But because I thought The Stand, It would be ones that, like, great. Like, let's just readapt those every certain period of time.
I mean, in all honesty, the not The Shining, Salem's Lot would not be a bad one either. A small town, all of a sudden it just starts going dark because everyone gets turned into vampires. Dude, sign me up. Like, I don't care if it's I don't care if it's 1999. I don't care if it's 2019. I don't care if it's 29.99.
But that one feels a little bit more timeless to me in terms of, like, just because it is a small town, like the things that define a childhood change quite a bit, generation to generation.
It's true.
Salem's Lot, it's probably going to feel the same. How often you go to, like, a small town, you're just like, dude, this is, like, straight from the 60s. Like, there's not a new building in this place. Like, everything's just like, it's like, it was just, like, frozen in time, you know?
My wife is from an extremely small town, so when we go down there, because her parents still live there, when we go down there and actually stay there, I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Like, I could literally walk from the end of town to the end of town and still have 23 hours left in my day.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And then Travis said Event Horizon is an underrated film, Hellraiser in space, and it was even better than the actual Hellraiser in Space Part 4. Yeah, indeed.
We good on your side?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just me.
Yeah. And then Mark says Return to Oz messed me up. And then Travis says the Wheelers from the Return to Oz OMG Nightmare Fuel. Now, what about the original Wizard of Oz? What about the freaking monkeys, man?
Did not do it for me. I
Dude.
mean, they kind of creeped me out.
Yeah, they.
But it was a little too, I don't want to say easy to realize that that's a costume.
Yeah.
As a kid. I mean, like,
what about
even
the trees?
Even when I was a small, the trees fucked me over. Oh, dude, you just gave me PTSD. I forgot about the trees. Oh shit, dude.
Yeah.
The worst part was I had a fucking tree outside my bedroom as a kid.
Yeah.
And it was a big fucking tree. So it's just like things like that.
If I was your parent then, Poltergeist.
Yeah.
You would have seen Poltergeist at like 5 because that tree at the end of the That's what you. If you can't scare the bejesus out of your children, what's the point of them? That's all I'm saying.
Never have children, Ted. never have kids.
Travis
says, raise up some monsters is what you're going to do if you ever have kids.
Travis says the monkeys are creepy too. That movie must have been horrifying in 1939. Yeah, no kidding. I think about that at times. I'm like for America anyway. World War II hadn't even started when this movie was made. Like, This is like, my grandma wasn't born yet. I mean, my family's all has young kids, so like my grandma's a little bit younger than a lot of people's my age. But like, yeah, she wasn't even born when that movie came out. So
it's also one of the earliest color films, right? So it's like it's jarring for people that were so used to black and white and everything like that. You know, the shit, I just spaced on his name. The silent films. The
Chaplin.
No, before Chaplin. The stunt guy. I forgot his name. I saw a bunch of his clips.
Buster Keaton.
Thank you, Buster Keaton. Stuff like that. You know, people grew up with that. And then they go and watch Wizard of Oz. Not only is it like a sensory overload for the color, but then you got like this shit.
Let's put this in context. So, Wizard of Oz was well within probably 20 years of that whole thing in France, and they screened the train coming toward the camera, and everyone in the audience ducked.
Yeah.
It's like 20 years later, they're watching Wizard of Oz. Like, yeah, that's insane. And then Travis, the great hashtag there, hashtag Tad is right. That's no, okay. And then I happen to also be poking around as part of this RIA conversation that we tangented away from. I spoke around Bev Vincent's amazing book, The Dark Tower Companion, and found an interview that he did with the brilliant comic book writer Peter David, legendary, both DC, Marvel. He's worked on a lot. But he worked on the Dark Tower comics. In this interview here, he was asked, were there open questions from the novels that weren't answered by the graphic novels that you wish there had been an opportunity to explore? And then the answer that Peter David gives is, the biggest question is the fate of Rhea of the Coos. To my mind, she looms almost larger in Roland's personal history in terms of villainy as the Man in Black does. Yet we have no details of their final confrontation other than the passing mention that he had killed her at some point, which even that's beyond what the text actually says. Because the text just says that he ran into her again. So that's all we got. And
and that's what I was saying. It's like me being the pessimist sometimes that I am with Dark Tower. It's like, Jesus Christ, if she got away again.
Yeah. And then he goes on and says, "I would love to do a one-off issue with Robin, and one would hope Steven's input. Robin Firth is obviously who he's referencing to, that told that story. If no other reason than I hate Rhea more than any villainous character in the series, but we never got to see her get hers. So just kind of to put a cherry on top of what I'm saying, yeah. Like, but I guess that doesn't really answer the question that I asked of, does her not getting her end in our view, does that make her more hated?
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think there's maybe not for everyone, but there's going to be a small part. I mean, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
If I had a closure for Rhea that, Roland fucking blows her brains out in book 5, great.
Yeah.
I'd probably be able to move on, and there would be different things that happened after that. But
yeah.
But that gnawing, that bitch never got it, kind of thing.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so now to another topic in the Palaver section here. Earlier this week, I got to the moment I mentioned that I came back to the series. So I took a week or so break.
Yeah.
I got to the point where Cuthbert punches Roland in the face.
Boom, sucker punch.
I realized, and I tweeted that this might be one of my favorite moments in the entire book, like outside of like the Traveler's Rest and stuff. And I was actually really surprised because most of the people on Twitter were agreeing with me, and I just didn't expect them to.
Oh, really?
Because what I agreed is this, or what they were agreeing to me, I guess I forgot to state my point, is that I'm totally on Cuthbert's side.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And I guess I never realized that others, because I guess we've talked about how I could be very like Roland-esque in terms of just like I look at the facts. Like I don't care that someone's in love. Like the facts are you got to get this fucking done. Like that just old Roland and me are very similar in that. And I just kind of assumed, because there's times you're like, dude, like that's just like, no, I feel more for Eddie, like, and I'm just like, are you fucking kidding? Like, no, you just got to do that, like whatever it might be. And I guess just because of that, I just assumed like in that same way that there's that difference between you and I just assumed that most people would have like felt for Roland, the fact that, this 14-year-old kid falls in love and like whatever. So I was just really surprised. And I mentioned on Twitter, I was curious to ask you what your thought process on the whole thing.
Cuthbert's 1,000% right. Absolutely. Okay. Roland is it's one thing to be in love. It's another thing to put your best friends in mortal danger for a girl.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing to be like that is the big thing for me.
Okay.
Again, this goes back.
So he doesn't even get a break for the fact that he's only 14?
No. He's a gunslinger. You went and got your guns, dude. Man up.
Okay.
Okay. At that point, that's where you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's the kind of thing like you say with like Eddie later. Eddie's gonna do it, but he's gonna gripe along the way, and that's what really gets to you. It's just like, dude, shut the fuck up and do what Roland tells you to do.
Yeah.
The problem there is that no one's there to guide Roland because Roland's the one that's supposed to be guiding them.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the biggest thing for me with Cuthbert is that Cuthbert and Alan have been betrayed. Basically, is the way I look at it. And you can't betray your Kotet members, your Kotet mates and everything. They're your brothers. Like for that's dude. No.
Yeah.
You gotta have your head on straight with shit like that. Because in all honesty, if Cuthbert doesn't do that, they die. Period. Yeah. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They fucking die. Period.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I guess it just surprised me a little bit. And you're kind of in on that surprise as well. So no, that's fine. I just got to that and had to mention it because like there's like the Traveler's Rest. There's like, I guess the resolution of Blaine is technically in this book. So there's some big moments in this book. So it's certainly not in the realm of like anywhere near those, but it within the realm of this story outside of the Traveler's Rest, it might be one of my favorite moments of the story itself, of this story, the Magus, of Roland's backstory. Like I would say the Magus, not even his backstory, because like even his trial of manhood is recovered in this book, and I think that's higher than this in my opinion. But like this is definitely a moment I love because it's like like one, I love Cuthbert. Two, like I feel I always empathize with him more because like I feel like even when it comes down to not just Roland or Cuthbert, but what about Alan and Cuthbert? Like Alan has taken it more like he understands there's a problem, but he's not. Like, I guess, like, there's maybe an element of Cuthbert that is the disagreeable part is I feel like there's a little bit of bitterness and resentment that's mixed in there.
Jealousy.
Yeah, so kind of like he says to Roland, you're right, but for the wrong reason, so you're all the way wrong. In some ways, isn't the same thing apply to Cuthbert? Like, he in a lot of ways, he punched Roland not just because that he was putting them at risk, but because he's jealous. He's lost his best friend to the girl, which is like, you know, like whatever. But like, so in the same way, it's
also a simple jealousy of how beautiful Susan.
Yeah,
is.
And there's that too. But like, I feel like that's maybe why I assume that maybe more people would like side with Roland, not even just because Roland's right, but because Cuthbert has just as much wrongness in his stance as Roland does, because it comes down to like very negative things. And also, Alan keeps telling him, right, you can't, if anything happens to this quartet, you're the one that fucking did it, not Roland. Yep. Like, you're the one that's doing this shit. You're the one that's like, that's angry. You're the one that like, whatever. Like, Alan's constantly trying to talk him off the edge.
Alan's right about that. The problem is that Alan doesn't have the full picture. For me, that's where Cuthbert, when it comes to the confrontation, Alan obviously disagrees. You sucker punched him and he gets all defensive for Roland. But
and he doesn't defend Roland when the cards are laid down.
No, exactly. And that's what I'm saying is like beforehand with all the conversations you're talking about with Alan and Cuthbert and saying like, if you break this quartet, if you do something, you're breaking the quartet. You are, not Roland. You're doing this and everything like that.
And he defends Susan as well.
He defends Susan as well. Like, you know, this isn't her fault. This isn't his fault. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The thing that I would say with Cuthbert in his defense is simply that he does get all the information and he does make a decision. It's a rash one. Instead of just coming and yelling at Roland and doing that, you know, he does put him in his place. He puts him in the dirt.
Yeah.
Puts him on his ass by sucker punching him.
Yeah.
And he does. And to me, it's like, I've always been kind of curious, like, what if Alan had been the one that got the note from Shimi? Would it have actually awakened him if he had gone to Roland and talked to him?
I think it would have pushed him to confronting Roland-ish, but in an Alan type of way.
Yeah.
Like, it certainly would have been a sucker punch. I don't even think it would have been a raised voice.
No.
I think it would have been more of just like a
reasoning.
Yeah, like verbally shaking Roland. Like, wake the fuck up. We're in danger.
You have got to change how you're handling this. But it would be a very calm Alan.
Yeah.
What I could see
just
happening,
because the nature of who he is.
Yeah.
Right?
What I could see happening from that is that Cuthbert would be present when that happened. Obviously.
Yeah.
I think Cuthbert.
No, I think Alan would have done it. I don't
think he would have because
I do.
I don't think he would betray the quartet like
he
that.
would have foreseen the Cuthbert blowing his top.
But he would have to be honest with Cuthbert. You couldn't hide something like that. Cuthbert doesn't hide it from them. I don't think that Alan.
They would have brought him in on it for sure, but I don't think it would have been at that moment of revelation.
Initial conversation.
It would have been like, take Roland aside, give him the rundown, kind of give him the verbal like shaking, like, wake the fuck up, kid. And then at that point they would loop Alan in once, or loop Cuthbert in once Roland's head was on straight, because then they could come at Cuthbert with hat in hand to be like, I was wrong.
I was wrong. You're right.
And then reveal it that way. That's, in my mind, the way I picture Alan. That's what he would have done to like.
Well, that's where
to avoid.
That's where the problem lies. Is that could Alan actually wake up Roland without the sucker punch?
It's tough to say. I mean,
it's really tough to say. For me, you know, it's a question of, you know, like, Roland definitely shows like one of his biggest weaknesses there for Susan and everything.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, do you honestly believe that without Cuthbert and the way that Cuthbert handles it, do you honestly believe that Alan could have brought him back?
It's tough to say.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I guess I'll mention too is I feel like there's a closeness that Cuthbert and Roland have, and I think that is what breeds some of it too. Because it's not even just Susan, right? He's also jealous of the fact that Roland has got his gunslinger badge first, right? So there's like a multi-layered thing going on with Cuthbert, and like, so he's got a lot of blame in that, and a lot of the way things happen too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And even just like being subservient, right? Like, Alan constantly tells him like, he's a gunslinger, we're here, like, he's in charge, like, he's the gunslinger, you know. And I feel like Cuthbert's constantly fighting that. He's constantly challenging Roland. He's constantly like, whatever. Like, even think about the whole Bar K thing, you know. Like, Alan senses it and tries to like get Roland to go back, or, you know, if we can't all go back, I want to go back, whatever. Roland doesn't let him. Like, they don't tell Cuthbert till they get there, and Cuthbert loses his fucking mind, right?
Yeah,
and he's like, because
Roland
you knew this shit was going to happen.
Yeah,
you know, and like, so just their different reactions. It just is like, it's the relationship that they have, right? It's like Cuthbert and Roland's relationship is like that. Cuthbert's not really treating Roland like a gunslinger, and like, so I guess like that's only like slightly part of this conversation of like the sucker punch, but it does ultimately come down to the fact that I feel like Alan is constantly treating Roland differently. Like, that he's giving him that respect of being a gunslinger, whereas I don't think Cuthbert does. I don't think until I don't even know when it happens fully with Cuthbert. I think it's when they're reconciling all happens, when he finally just like fully accepts the fact that, because that's when they reveal the plan and stuff. I think that's when Cuthbert realizes that, like, you know,
Roland actually has a plan for how to handle this problem.
Yeah, he hasn't been completely in the clouds. So I feel like that's where like their relationship is kind of mended. But yeah, I feel like so much of the book, their relationship is just on the fritz, and I think a lot of it comes down to like probably that they're close and like he's got a lower resentment. So I guess that it's interesting to me. I fully expected a lot of people to be like, wait, really? Like Roland's 14? Like, so I expected to get some resistance, and I got none. So that's interesting to me. So last up, we got some odds and ends. So Mr. Mercedes season 3 has been announced for September 10th. It's covering Finders Keepers, which is the second book of the Bill Hodges trilogy. It'll be the third season of this, obviously taking place after some events of book 3.
Yeah, we still need to figure out a way to watch season 2.
I know. I think they finally put a DVD out of season 1, so I'm thinking it'll happen. Same thing with season 2. So,
okay.
Yeah, I still haven't even seen season 2. I also wanted to, this is like not super like King related or anything, but I wanted to mention it. So Entertainment Weekly has announced they're moving away from weekly publications, and they're going to be doing monthly publications.
Entertainment Monthly?
No, I think they're still calling EW. But as such, they parted away with a number of people, including their lead editor, but also Anthony Bresnikan is no longer with them.
Oh, no.
So just wanted to throw that out there. He was obviously a guest on our show. I think he's obviously going to land on his feet. He's a really good, probably one of the best when it comes to like doing pop culture stuff, but I definitely wish him all the best.
Yeah, he's so talented. That's a bummer to hear that.
Yeah, so and he's not the only one. There's a number of people involved there that are kind of so just wanted to at least mention it, just because I don't know, Anthony's been on the show, and definitely I don't know, whatever.
We're fans of him. Like, he does
definitely
great work.
Definitely. So we'll see what Entertainment Weekly ends up being, but I'm hoping that and I even saw Stephen King retweeted his announcement and said, well, something along the lines of I can't believe they would like let you go or whatever. And then he said something along the lines of like, maybe it's time to start looking at following up your first novel. So, and I was like, that's probably good for Anthony to be like, hey, he wrote a novel on top of being like a writer for entertainment stuff, but to have Stephen King tell him like, maybe it's
time to do more.
Yeah, maybe it's an open window to write your next novel. Like, that's got to be a
confident booster.
Yeah, it's got to be quite something. But
that's a little pick me up.
Yeah, but I at least wanted to mention it, if nothing else, because I feel like if I didn't mention it, like, you wouldn't know, people wouldn't know, and maybe it would get brought up, and it would be like an awkward moment later on. Also, Stephen King had a tweet. It got a little bit of coverage. This isn't Dark Tower related, but it's Stephen King related. He's getting credit for tweets are 240 something characters, so it's well within that. But it's a fun little thing here that he wrote. You're not on Twitter, so you don't.
Nope.
Okay, so this is his tweet. I'll just read it. He says, want a little bedtime story? My friend felt he had a hair caught between his eye and his glasses.
I saw this.
You did?
No.
He couldn't get rid of it, so he looked in the mirror. A tick was crawling on his eyeball. Nighty-night, sleep well.
My wife showed me that. Oh, I went around on Twitter.
Oh, I had to share it because, like, isn't that just quintessential King? I wish everyone could have seen Peter was there rubbing his eyes the second that he realized what this tweet was.
No.
Yeah, and dude, it was so funny, like all the different responses people gave to him. One of my favorites was the little gingerbread man. You're a monster.
You're a monster.
So we got.
Can you tell me what movie that's from?
No, I don't. I know I've seen that like GIF a number of times, but I don't know what it's from. So let's we're getting close to the end of time, but we have an email, of course, we want to get to.
That's right.
So let's go ahead and
God damn it. This is the real reason why Tad did emails. Every episode.
Emails. Tad's gonna read us what people do us.
Oh, that's not good.
God damn it. Back in the days when we recorded and had you edit it and everything like that before we put it out and no one heard me sing.
Yeah, indeed.
Now I got to be more careful because we got live audiences.
Yeah, indeed. No matter what you do, it's just going to be on the YouTubes.
The YouTube.
Yeah. Okay, so we can get over it. Oh yeah, I got the picture there for emails. I forgot about that. So first up, we got Daryl from Minneapolis. He starts off Heil Gunslingers.
Heil.
He says just finished listening to the latest roundtable where he discussed it. Obviously, emails are somewhat dated. I was reminded of an open-ended tweet King put out in early December. It Chapter 2 is coming is the quote. He was referring to the movie, which everybody already knows is coming, or did he mean another book is coming? I think it's,
don't tempt me like that. That's mean.
He says if you follow him on Twitter, it's a really random open-ended tweet from him. I'm sure it was intended for the movie, but it also seems like a type of tease he would do for something new. What do you think? I think it's definitely just for the movie. But yeah, if nothing else, it does have that momentary like, man, what if?
What if?
Yeah.
He's only ever done a couple sequels.
Yeah, up until
Dr. Sleep.
recent, since the end of the Dark Tower series, we didn't really see sequels that much. It's after that you got like the Bill Hodges was a trilogy. You got Dr. Sleep.
We did have Black House after Talisman.
Yeah, that would probably be one of the few.
I can't think of another sequel. I mean, aside from, I'm not counting series like Dark Tower.
Dark Tower.
Dark Tower was going to be multiple parts.
Yeah, it was meant.
I would say Bill Hodges trilogy is,
but see, a lot of it's newer, and Dr. Sleep came out more recent.
Dr. Sleep came out more recent.
So yeah, it's definitely not something that I would expect, especially it and I have a hard. I mean, it's hard to put a pin in it, but I feel like it is probably his most iconic work.
Sure,
like in terms of iconic, maybe not his most it's not his magnum opus. It's not his not his like whatever, but like. I don't think that Stephen King has anything that the wide world would put to him more than it. As much as like The Stand, when you talk to constant readers, The Stand is usually people's top like favorite thing. Dark Tower is obviously the magnum opus. Like there's a number of things. But like, when it comes to it, I mean, like I think of like Donnie Darko. There's just one scene where his mom's reading and it's the book It. Like there's a reason you pick that book. You don't pick Cujo. You don't pick Salem's Lot. You don't pick whatever else. No, it's It. Like that. Is even outside of the Tim Curry series, like there's something just fucking iconic about that, just the whole thing. So let me
ask you a question, or should I save it for next roundtable?
No, go ahead.
If you could have a sequel to any King book, which one would it be? Single sequel where it continues the story so that you can get just more with those characters.
Yeah, I'm trying to think with the characters, because I think like it would. If it was going to happen, I wouldn't want it to be the same characters.
It would be something new.
I would want it to
be someone else encountering Pennywise. You're right.
Yeah.
Same characters though. So sequel, not Dr. Sleep is Danny Torrance. That's the same character.
Yeah.
I
think through my head like The Stand, no, because it's just so final. Like I wouldn't want to see more in some way. Does that make sense? As much as
what else is there really to tell? I mean, like the world rebuilding, great.
Yeah, and I'd love to like explore with those characters and live with them a little bit longer from a selfish standpoint. But like, I don't think that it would be necessarily the best choice if that makes sense. Like, let's see. I'm trying to think. Like, that's a tough one. 11/22/63, not really. I'm trying to think of like some of my favorites. I
got one.
What?
Firestarter.
Okay.
You haven't read that one yet, have you?
No.
It has a really good ending to give you closure, but also leaves a lot of questions still unanswered. It's a really good, if I would say, it's probably one of King's better endings. People always say he has weak endings. I don't agree with that. But if I was going to put an ending forth to someone and say, here's an example of King not having a weak ending, I would say Firestarter would be it. Yeah. People could back me up on this or thrash me. I'm fine with that. But for me, Firestarter leaves it to where I could definitely see them doing a second. I could see him doing a second novel about it. Yeah, because it's definitely leaves it there to where there's questions left unanswered and characters that I still care about and would want to see what happens with them. Yeah, after the conclusion of the book. Obviously, like Cujo, Carrie, neither one of those has good ending to where you can be like,
okay, I got one.
Yeah.
And I would also, I'd want it if I could have a time machine and get a younger King, but Pet Sematary. Ooh. Yeah. Not the same characters, I guess, because you'd have to have other people, like whether it's different people doing it, whether it's a prequel.
Would you? What about the daughter? you got to remember in the book, the daughter stays in Chicago.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's
the
true.
dad's taking mom. I mean, spoilers for Pet Sematary, guys. The dad's taking mom up to the cemetery at the end of the book.
Yeah.
We don't know what happens. I mean, obviously we can kind of guess.
Yeah.
We saw what happened with everyone else that's ever buried up there.
Yeah.
Everything that's buried up there. But what happens with Ellie?
Yeah.
Where does she go? Where does her story go? That's kind of the question with like Firestarter. It's not as dark as Pet Sematary, but there's characters left, and it's like, okay, I think I have a direction, but where would King take them?
Yeah.
That's what I think is the big question. I mean, obviously if I could get new characters and a new direction, I mean, but at the end of it, Derry's fucking destroyed. Like I don't think that it's going to be rebuilt. Like it's done. Like the entire downtown sinks. Like I don't think there's really coming back from that. So for me, Derry means that I don't know if I want to go further with it.
Yeah.
For me.
That'd be a tough one. And maybe that's the reason that he hasn't done a lot of sequels is because there just isn't as furtive. And honestly, when it comes down to it, like when it comes to a lot of authors, there's not a lot of sequels, and books don't have sequels like movies, you know. Like some, you got like your like Jack Ryan, or you got your Hannibal Lecter, like you got ones that have them, but like if there's for every one that has them, there's a lot that don't.
But it seems like it's more like their series, the Harry Potter series, or the Hunger Games series, or something like that was designed to be multiple books.
Yeah.
Or you have the ones like Jack Ryan that turn into a franchise.
Yeah.
James Bond style.
And so I would even say Lord of the Rings like has other books, but I would say that like, the trilogy Lord of the Rings, quote unquote, I consider one book.
It is supposed to be one book.
He wrote it as one book.
They broke it up for publication, right?
But I mean, you also have like the Silmarillion, the Hobbit. So maybe I'm just like not thinking hard enough. But I feel like there's like a lot of like, especially like classic literature stuff. Like you don't get sequels. You know,
Dracula.
You just get like
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
You know, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. You don't get sequels to stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just had one in my head and I lost it. Oh, what about Salem's Lot?
Yeah,
they don't ever get Barlow.
No, that has kind of a quote unquote open ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be possible. But yeah, I think Pet Sematary, just because I would love to explore kind of the
aftermath.
Not even just the aftermath, but more of the burying ground, like more about. Let me know more about it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's even like now, like there was like some talk about, you know, maybe they would do a prequel to it for a movie wise, and I'm like, fucking sign me up, dude. I'd love that, you know, because there's a lot that the new movie didn't cover that we have in the book, but also go like Godfather. Cool, the book gives you a little bit, but then take that, build a bunch more, and make new stuff that is involved. Like, go for it. Yeah. So. Let's do one more email.
Okay.
We got Ryan from California. He says, hi, Tad and Peter.
Hi.
He says, it's been a while since I wrote you guys. I've been catching up on your show. I lapsed for a bit, but now I'm listening regularly again. In fact, one of my 2019 resolutions is to read more Stephen King books, which
good man.
That's a noble one. He says, I haven't read much outside the Dark Tower, The Stand, and It, so I decided to read Pet Sematary.
Whoa.
Speaking of Pet Sematary, the night I finished it, I had the worst nightmare of my life.
Yep.
I don't remember much of it other than it was involving zombies. It was waking up from it that was bad. I occasionally suffer from sleep paralysis. This episode was quite bad, and I could not move, and my mouth gaped open like being caught in a silent scream. That is par for the course. What made this worse is the fact that my brain, being half asleep, hallucinated Gage from the book sitting on my chest with a scalpel. Then suddenly it was over and I was able to fully wake up. It sounds scary, but I always laugh it off after they happen. Yeah, and I just picture Gage from the original movie too. Like when I picture Gage, that little kid is what I picture.
I don't know why, but the kid from The Omen always replaces Gage in my head. Just
what? Oh, yeah, Damien. Are you talking from the original or from the newer one?
The original.
Okay, because the original, I feel like the kid kind of looks normal. Like he has the kid could pass for normal. The kid in the new one from the early 2000s, that kid's a fucking monster. Just destroy.
Someone should have put that kid out of his.
Just destroy the child, because like you look at it, it's like that kid is like evil.
You're walking through the mall. You're just like, your kid's evil. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
like,
I'm sure.
like, what the fuck?
I'm sure they did something like, like makeup wise, like make it more pasty. They just did so much to where I just felt like the kid I don't know how you would ever not think the kid was evil. Like the whole point of like, oh, the Omen is like kind of the debate with the dad is like, is this kid fucking evil? And I'm just like, when I was watching the remake, I'm like, just the way that he's
evil,
the way they dress him, the way he looks, the way he acts, like the kid is just nothing but evil. Whereas the first one, it's like, okay, you got some moments where it's like he looks like a normal kid.
He freaks me out, the original kid. So that's where I always put Gage. And then like when we it was a few episodes ago, we had a picture of Gage up on the screen, from the original, and I was like, that's not Gage. Oh, that is Gage. I'm thinking of the Omen again. I'm thinking of Damien.
Yeah, indeed. And then he says it's a pretty common sleep pneumonia.
Yeah.
Then he goes on and says, that's the first time a King book gave me bad dreams. Other than that, I thought the book was good. It was just depressing as hell. Being a father myself, it was a tough read. I'm looking forward to the new movie. The trailer gives it an Evil Dead vibe, in my opinion. And he says, I want to ask you guys if a book, King book has ever given you guys bad dreams. Well, now Cujo is next on the list. Can't wait to read it. And then it gives us a little winky emoji there. I don't know if I've ever... I believe I've had some outbreak type nightmares at some point in like the last 15 years or so, and that's definitely like The Stand, like
okay, you said outbreak,
like the outbreak, like movie theater, like just kind of like, I don't know, like I've had those type things before, and I could probably attribute that to like, I think I've even had them at times when I was reading the Stand, but I don't know, because I can only talk about more recent. Like I don't remember. I mean, at some
10
point,
years ago.
at some point, I'm sure as a child, the Tim Curry Pennywise probably gave me a nightmare or two. But like more recent, I'm not sure. Other than I know I've had some like outbreak, like the world's fucking crumbling because like everyone's dying of illness and shit.
Yeah, for me, I've been in King a lot less time than you have, 15 years or so. For me, the one that flat out gave me nightmares like consistently, and it's one of the reasons why I read it very seldomly, is Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
First novel I ever read from King. The vampires in that freaked me the fuck out.
Yeah.
Because like I was fresh off of watching like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. My girlfriend at the time got me into that, and also like Van Helsing with
Wolverine.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman. Fucker.
He's Wolverine.
He is Wolverine. Stuff like that, kind of, for vampires. I mean, it was even before Twilight that vampires were kind of neutered for me. I mean, even the Blade trilogy had come out, and it's just like, fuck, if Wesley Snipes could cut off 18 heads in one scene, how bad can vampires be? They weren't monsters. They weren't horror. I mean, we all know my horror shtick is creatures.
Yeah,
beasts. Werewolves are the big
like
one.
Mork.
Like Mork. Yeah, Mork is a perfect example of something that freaks me the fuck out.
Yeah.
Even just mentioning the wolf from Neverending Story. I've seen that movie one time in my life, and there's a reason for that. So, stuff like that is what gets to me. Werewolves is a big one. Just creatures in general always will just be part of it. That's what King did, is he made vampires creatures.
Yeah.
They're just these horrifying parasitic leeches.
Yeah.
In human form.
Yeah.
So shit like that got to me, and I swear to God that, like I was living in the basement at the time at my parents' house when I read that in high school, and I swear to God that I heard tappings on because I was like below ground. Like I had one of those small windows.
Yeah.
Like no bigger than like your window fan, like 2 feet big. Like I really couldn't have get out of it if I had to.
Yeah.
Well, I probably could back then. I couldn't now. But I swear I heard people tapping on that window.
Yeah.
And like it freaked me out. It actually reminds me of a fucking story. My sister forgot her keys one time, and she was tapping on my window, and I heard the tap 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 tap, and I'm like, fuck. I'm not gonna look, because if I look, I'm gonna freak the fuck out. Tap tap tap. But she was trying to do it quietly so she didn't wake my parents, because she was home late.
Yeah.
And so finally I turned around and looked, and it's my sister, and I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ, kind of thing. So just like Yeah, for me, Salem's Lot gave me the most consistent nightmares, but it did affect me too.
Yeah.
And I actually had an it-related nightmare. Oh, geez, last time I read it, last year or the year before. But I had a dream that, you know how Bill's wife gets taken? I had a dream that my daughter was taken by Pennywise, and I had to go fight that fucker, which was not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah. And then Travis throws one out. Best vampire film.
Best vampire film? Bram Stoker's Dracula.
As I'll say, I'd have to say the same. Francis Ford Coppola directed.
Yeah.
I will admit my bias. I feel like that is probably the best adaptation of the actual book. But it's, I mean, and that's changing now. But for the longest time, that was one of Gary Oldman's few leading roles, and he's my all-time favorite actor, probably.
Yeah.
Like, I think I've gotten beyond, like, I've always said he's probably one of my favorites. I've always said that, like, he's one of the greatest of our time. I'm beyond that now. He's my all-time favorite, and I think he might be the greatest actor of all time. Like, he's fucking brilliant. And
He's so versatile.
And him playing Dracula is pretty awesome. But yeah, I love that one. We're talking about the same movie, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Francis Ford Coppola directed. You got Keanu Reeves, Anthony Hopkins, Winona Ryder,
Yes.
and then of course Gary Oldman playing Dracula himself. Yeah, I think that but
quintessential vampire, quintessential hard to kill, the hypnotizing, the broads and everything like that.
Because that's the first one that really tried to adapt the story,
the Bram Stoker
as it was in the book, like, you know, like, because you kind of get the Bela Lugosi like vibe in like the 30s with the Universal monsters, and I feel like so much of vampires more comes from that than the actual like
source
Dracula
material,
novel. And I feel like with Coppola, what he's trying to do there was you know, go with kind of what the book was, and except for Keanu Reeves doing a shitty English accent, it's a pretty great movie.
For me, I don't have a problem with vampires being changed. I liked Blade for what it was. I mean, it was a good hack.
No, somebody mentioned, Travis mentioned, Let the Right One In, or perhaps Blade 2. So yeah, that did get mentioned.
So for me, you know, like I've never been in like a huge like vampire junkie where it's like they have to be this way, they have to be this way.
Yeah, no,
I've never been like that. I mean, in all honesty, there was aspects of like I read the Twilight series off of like, you know, like peer pressure from people that are like, no, you gotta
pressure.
No, the thing
no,
was
I
like,
just the reason I'm laughing is because every time I hear the word peer pressure, I always think of Scream.
Oh yeah,
when Stu's talking about why he was the killer. Peer pressure.
The peer pressure made me do it.
Like every time someone says that phrase, I think of that, so that's why I laugh. I'm not laughing at you. No, I'm just laughing because I think
it's really the wrong way of putting it. I wasn't like, you know, like, oh, you have to read it. You know, if you don't read it, you're a pussy or anything like that. No, it wasn't like that. It was someone. I think it was my sister. Honestly, it was like, no, it's actually really good literature. It's got a really good story. And then she convinced me by saying that it has a spin on vampires that's never been done before. And I don't know if I've said it actually on air. I've talked to you about this, and me and my wife are both fans of this. I'm a fan of them explaining legends and myths in ways that makes kind of logical sense. The example I always give when trying to explain this, because there's not a word for this, is the movie Troy. Achilles dies by like 5 arrows to the chest, but the first arrow hit him in his heel. He pulls all the ones out of his chest out, so when he's discovered, Achilles heel. And you can see how, okay, that's how Achilles heel came to be.
Yeah.
Something like that. The thing with Twilight, they sparkle in the sunlight, so they're not going to die in the sunlight, but obviously, what the fuck is that guy sparkling for?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you know, kind of thing. I don't know why, but I like aspects like that. I like when people take something and they change it just a little bit to make it more, not just straight, you know, copy from Bram Stoker's and everything like that.
Yeah.
But for me, that's one of the reasons why I liked Blade so much.
Yeah.
Because they took it and they just changed vampires just a little bit, but they still stayed true to like the source material.
Yeah.
But I like the little like twerks for it and everything like that.
Yeah, indeed. And then Travis also says werewolves are his favorite monster. I love werewolves. I just don't think there's enough of them done.
There's never any werewolf movies.
Yeah.
Thank God.
We should just watch Creepshow.
No, the monkey. No. Fuck that monkey.
Oh, and then Chris showed up. Hello, fellow.
Hey, Chris.
Chris, good to see you. And he says this 100th, and yes, it indeed is number 100. It says I'll have to re-listen when it's uploaded. And then he says best vampire movie Twilight. And then he says / sarcastic. So yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of good. I even love like the classic Universal monster stuff when it comes to I don't know. I love that kind of stuff. In terms of like, like vampires, werewolves. Like, I love that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to. I don't know, to see what we have with Salem's Lot, the new movie. It's intriguing to me. But yeah, I think that's will do us in. We still got some good emails. We got some emails rolling in too, so I'm really excited to get to them and discuss them. We have some good conversations upcoming when it comes to emails for sure. So yeah, let's go ahead and hit the outro though real quick. So first off, if you want to subscribe to us, you can do that on iTunes or stream us on Stitcher. You can, if you could rate and review us on iTunes, we'd love that. If you can find the show notes, darktowerpalaver.com for all the stuff that we discussed in this episode. If you want to see the pictures or read the articles, that kind of stuff, do that at darktowerpalaver.com. If you want to engage with the show, there's a number of ways to do that. Peter can tell you how.
Best way to reach us is through emails. We're doing one an episode. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. Let me re-say that. We're doing at least one per episode.
Yeah.
You can find us also on Facebook. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. We're also on the Twitter. It's @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. And then we stream our shows. It's youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. And we do the roundtable stay up. The book clubs get taken down, copyright issues. But you can also check out live with us, which we record pretty regularly, like Tad said earlier. Saturdays, 5 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Mountain Time is our normal time frame. Every now and then we'll have an off, like this one. I got something going on tomorrow, so that's the reason why we're recording early. But yeah, check us out on YouTube.
Yeah, indeed. Chris, Travis says, awesome show, guys. Had a lot of fun. Thank you, Travis. Chris said, bring back the oi at the end of the recording. He said subtle oi, but no, I used to just like drop in certain things at the end, like after this show.
Yeah.
And like, what's funny is Chris brings this up is because I was just thinking about that last episode when I was posting it. I was like, I remember when I used to throw something at the end. I'm like, I wonder if anyone even like noticed those, or like if they've listened that long, or if they did anyone like miss that they're not there anymore.
It's been asked for.
And Chris mentions it, so that's awesome. And then Travis says, congrats on the 100th episode.
Oh, thank you.
And Chris says the same. Congrats on that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun over the. I mean, it feels weird because I know like with other podcasts I listen to, they do weekly or whatever. They obviously got here in half the time that we did. So like it feels weird that 100, like it feels low to me. Just because like in my mind thinking weekly, like 100 should have been
a while ago,
almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But no, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm still loving doing this. It's fun to chat Dark Tower, Stephen King in general. You guys make it a lot of fun to do as well, whether it's the live chat, which I don't know how we got away with not doing this. Like I remember we did some of the live shows and stuff. Those are fun for sure, but I don't know how we did this regularly without having people in the chat and stuff. It's a lot of fun. We had a lot
more to talk about back then because we hadn't covered everything 5 or 6 times. So.
Yeah, indeed. And also even the emails. I do appreciate all the emails because like I think about that, like what would this show be without if we didn't have people's emails? Like I feel like sometimes like some of the best conversations come up because you guys will bring something up that we don't, or bring a new I don't know, whether it's even a story, whether it's a take on something in the Dark Tower, whatever it is. There's always a lot of cool stuff you guys bring up. So
or helping us when we have brain farts.
yeah, that too. But I love it. So yeah, 100 episodes in. Here's to 100 more and 100 more and 100 more. So
also in case you missed it, like Chris came in late, we talked about doing something special for the 100 roundtable. Is what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, we want to do something special, probably more for the 100th roundtable. This one was, I knew it was coming up, but like it did slip my mind a little bit as I was like prepping the show. Up until more recent, that I was like, oh yeah, shit, like. So like it wasn't enough to like, and also we're doing it on an off time.
Yeah,
like
early
and I wasn't sure I had got an announcement out there to where it would be known enough that we were doing it. So I didn't want to like plan some big thing and like have like
have
it be like, or have it be on like a different night than everyone's expecting or whatever. So yeah, but we'll definitely plan something for the 100th roundtable though, because that'll be certainly a big event. I mean, we're almost 3/4 of the way there. A couple more, we have a book club next, and then we'll have 2 more roundtables. So once we get back to our second book club, we'll be at 75. So.
Second round table.
No, like so we have a book club next,
Oh,
and then we'll have
next.
2 more because we're at 73 now.
Okay, so you're saying the second book club. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun. Travis says 100 plus episodes at 2 hours clip isn't a low amount of content. You guys have put out so much entertaining material. Don't sell yourselves short. Yeah, no, and I do. Yeah, that's true. And we've had some longer ones too. I remember we have at least one 4-hour episode.
There was one of the early ones that we did. I think it was only like episodes like maybe like 3 or 4 where we did our dreamcasting. We were like 2.5 hours in, and we're like, are we gonna wrap up? Or
we split that?
And then you're just like, don't worry about it. I'll split it into 2 episodes. I'm like, all right, there we go. That's one that we ended up going for like. We ended up going for like 4.5, 5 hours, something like that.
And we split that one, but we actually did one that we ended up posting at almost a 4-hour episode too.
That was the movie reaction, wasn't it?
May have been. I can't remember. Yeah, because I think we had chat and stuff. So yeah, we've had some long episodes for sure. And yeah, and it's not that I'm necessarily selling it like short. It's just one of those things that like 100 feels low, just because in my mind I'm like doing it almost 4 years. Like, wow, we're only to 100. Like that's crazy to me. But yeah, it's definitely the bi-weekly thing is a big thing there. But yeah, I'm definitely not selling it short on how much we've done, because I mean I even just think about it at times, like trying to think back, because we have an email that's upcoming that we'll get to at some point where someone just started and they're
nice.
And like every time somebody emails me that and they're like starting from the beginning, it makes me kind of reflect on like how long ago that was, like how different like our setup was and everything.
Oh yeah.
And like so no, it just feels like 100 feels low only in comparison to like it feels like we've been through so much that it's crazy.
We have 2 3-hour shows in just scrolling back so far. I don't think we had anything before this because these were all pre-recorded. These were not any of the live shows. We had 3 3-hour shows. Trailer reaction, movie reaction, and Castle Rock.
Oh, okay.
All three of those were over 3 hours. None of them got close to 4 hours though.
Oh, I swear I had a 4-hour one, but
I think the one you're thinking of with 4 hours is the one with our Dreamcasting, where we hour and 20 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. So,
okay, yeah,
not even that one. Yeah, that one wouldn't have been 4 hours either. So,
and even one time we did when we were doing pre-recording, we'd like to have a book club kind of in our back pocket,
in the bucket,
so that if there's a time when we were sick or something, we could just post that and then like whatever. And at one point I know we recorded a round table and a book club immediately after, and we recorded 2 episodes back to back.
We did do that. That was rough.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks guys, it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, we're definitely enjoying it, and we're gonna keep going, and when we get to 100th round table here,
we're not to the tower yet. We're not done.
No, exactly. The book clubs alone will keep us going until we're 80. So the rate we're going. But yeah, no, I don't even know to do the math in my head of when the 100th episode will be. But yeah, it's certainly looking at what like. Because we can't even do it monthly, because like we do like 2 round tables and a book club, 2 round tables and a book club. So like it kind of alternates with 2 episodes.
Right. Book club.
Yeah.
Round table 74, 75, 76. 7.
And Chris says the 100th episode feels like we're leaving the Mohaine Desert. Yeah, it really does. Like, I don't know. We're in this for the long haul. It's fun. Hopefully you guys are all having fun and continue to have fun, because we fully intend to keep rolling with it. So for the podcast, we'll go ahead and sign off as we always do by saying long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
And you guys in the live chat, thanks again. It's fun. You guys always make it a blast.
Just a quick count, just looking at the calendar because I have a save for.
I was like, I don't know if it'd be this year or not.
No, it's absolutely gonna be next year.
Okay, yeah.
We're actually looking about not this time next year, but April, May next year.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
2020,
which is cool, because we could really get some stuff together and plan some. I've had some thoughts of some things to think about. We'll talk about off air and make sure that like I don't want to like say something that turns out to be like way like harder to do or whatever. But I want to have something definitely special. Have a lot of fireworks for, we'll get the stuffy guys and.
Oh, you're terrible. You're the worst.
I want to make a stuffy guy like Ria's, the hand coming out of its chest and like multiple limbs.
Deformed.
Yeah. All right, guys. So yeah, thanks. let's see, like what sneak peek for live chat. I mean, I don't know. I want to do. I don't know.
One of the things we threw out there, and I don't think I've looked into it a little bit. I don't think we've found anything. So maybe if you guys live chat sneak peekers can give us. We were thinking about doing something along the lines of like a trivia game.
Yeah.
Where like someone could, like buzz in and give the answer before.
Yeah.
We talked about that, but I've looked into it. I can't find anything that would make it to where we could record while having people answer and everything.
I even wonder, like in the chat, because I was thinking
just someone write buzz. That's their buzzer, and then they give the answer.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it could be whatever. But yeah, there's a number of things. There's things like that. We want to do stuff that's like interactive. I also like. There's part of me that thinks like, do another call-in thing. I really feel like it's gonna be a long episode, whatever it is. Yeah. Like, it'll definitely be a celebration. But yeah,
should we aim for our first 4-hour episode?
Yeah, maybe we have it. I don't know why the hell I'm thinking we have.
Well, I mean, I imagine, especially with some of those ones where you had to edit it.
Yeah,
maybe it went over 4 hours.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. There's some different thoughts we have, but it's definitely want to be something that's like a celebration of both what we've done, like in terms of like over the years, but also like for you guys, a celebration of like the extended quartet. So
sure.
Yeah, we'll probably even throw something out there on social media and stuff as we get closer to it, especially to just get some ideas. Maybe around end of the year, we'll start throwing some stuff out and getting people's input of like, what do you guys want to see too? Because I don't want it to just be like us coming up with shit. Like, it's you guys are just so much a part of this, so it'd be interesting to see what you guys want to see. And like, I don't know, because I guess at that point we'll be 4 years in. It'll be a lot of fun.
4.5 years in.
Yeah, indeed. So what if you guys dance the Kamala? Yeah, I don't know about that. I pretty much have a no dancing policy in my life.
I'll dance the Kamala.
I've always told friends like that, like I go to weddings and people, oh, you gotta go dance. I'm like, no, if I get married, I'll dance one time in my life. But beyond that, and even then, I'll have to talk it with like, the soon to be wife, be like, can we get away with not dancing? Is that like possible? Because like dancing and Tad do not go together. No. It's not my style.
All right, guys.
Interview with Psy King. Yeah, if that's something I could actually pull off, I would certainly do such things. I mean, I thought about it though. I'm like, I don't even know what I would say. Like, I'd be like,
we're not worthy.
Yeah, it would just be 2 hours of us like Wayne's Worlding it. We're not worthy.
Yeah.
All right, guys. You guys that are here in the chat, keep that in the back of your minds. Think about what you might want to see as part of episode 100. Email them to us. I think that's the best way because I can kind of keep track through the emails. Social media is great, but I can lose track of things, especially like if something gets tweeted to us like now, like between now and the next, which
May,
the next even roundtable, right?
Yeah.
Like if you tweeted something to me to bring up at a roundtable, now our next episode in 2 weeks is a book club. So 2 weeks after that, that's a long ways away.
It is.
To go back and start scrolling through social media to figure out, wait, when was that thing posted? So,
If only there was a way to save something, like a screenshot of a tweet that you want to use for research later.
I try, but a lot of times, like with social media, sometimes I'm like on the fly when I'm checking it or whatever. Like sometimes I even like,
I gotcha.
Even respond late. Like someone will tweet a question and I'll like, oh shit. And then like 6 hours later, they get an answer. It's because I looked at it on the fly. Like, that's a great question. And then I put my phone back in my pocket, do whatever I'm doing. And
you're walking towards a meeting and you got an alert.
Yeah, exactly.
That.
So,
yeah.
All right, guys. See you guys. Long days and pleasant nights. And we'll see you guys for book club next time.
See you guys.